Oh, we're hoping for you, Eric.
I believe in you.
We all
Or
believe
just
in
lose
you.
power after all the super chats come in. That's fine. Yesterday's timing was great because all the super chats had already come in. So yeah, yeah. No, I only care about 90 minutes when it's at night. I always try to keep the Firelinks at night. I'm like, we gotta keep this to 90 minutes because I gotta get. This is like it's 9 o'clock.
This video is brought to you by Stygian Outer Gods, the Lovecraftian survival horror RPG filled with terror, suspense, and a main character named Jack. And hey, that's my name. Make your way through Kingsport, a dark and hostile town that challenges your very existence. Craft items, solve puzzles, and explore the dark corners of the settlement as you unravel the mysteries that lie deep within, including what happened to your precious dog Cookie. Wait, my actual dog is Cookie. Is my dog in this game? Because choose whether to sneak through the shadows and avoid the monstrosities that roam the streets or confront them head on with whatever weapon you manage to scrounge up. But be careful of Jack's sanity as he's almost out of coffee and his Ernest goes to jail mug needs to be washed. Wait, exposure to these disturbing and otherworldly encounters could lead to disastrous results. How did they know about my mug? Stygian Outer Gods hits PC Early Access on April 14th with a full PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S release set for 2026. Head on over to the Steam link below to wishlist the game today.
Welcome back to the Rewind, episode number 18 for Tuesday, April 1st, 2025. You might think this is an Ernest-centric podcast, but it's not.
Marty, you think you can stop Darren and I from discussing the Ernest movies? You cannot.
I mean, I didn't even chime in to say, hey guys, we're going live in 5 seconds. I was just shaking my head like they're just not going to stop. They're just going to keep talking about it. And I wanted to get in there really quick and say an Ernest mug. I thought that was always his face because he's always mugging. Am I right?
That's nice.
Little Varney goof. I'm Marty Sleva, joined by Darren Mooney, Jack Packard, and producer Eric, and we got a humdinger for y'all today. We're going to talk about some real good news. Coyote versus Acme has been saved by ketchup. One of the top 10 condiments came in, saved the movie from Zaslav Purgatory, so we're going to talk a bit about that. Maybe as a little audible, we'll touch on some CinemaCon. Some news coming out of CinemaCon, including the Beatles cinematic universe, which I know Jack is very excited about. And then we'll be talking about the new Apple TV Plus series, The Studio, and why Hollywood seems to be obsessed with Hollywood. And I'm going to be honest, I don't mind it. I think it's fine to be obsessed with Hollywood.
Don't mind it when it's good. When it's bad, it's insufferable. Like,
yes, I think that's how I feel about everything, though, right? Yeah. There's like no rules. As long as it's good, it's fine. And then a whole bunch about what other TV and movies and whatnot we've been watching. Welcome back, everyone. Darren, welcome back from your adventures. You went all the way to Australia. That's like a different planet.
Same planet, different hemisphere. Literally as far away from Ireland as I could get without coming back towards Ireland. No, good. Like again, brother and sister down there visiting them both. Both having a great time out there. Australia, I'm sure, is a fantastic country, populated by wonderful people. It looks gorgeous. It's got like wonderful environments. We'll say The parts of the country where everything's trying to kill me, not for me personally. That's just a personal preference. No shade on Australia. My brother's in Brisbane, which is on the kind of east coast up north a little bit, and it's 38 degrees outside most of the time. And I'm like, that's a little bit too much outside. I will say, when I was there, they had a cyclone, which is pretty much Dublin city centre on a Tuesday rain. And it was kind of interesting to just walk outside in my shorts and sandals and watch the city descend into anarchy as people deal with water falling from the sky. Again, really lovely place, really lovely people. Went to Tasmania. Tasmania is absolutely fantastic. Tasmania is gorgeous. If you're ever in Tasmania, check out Mona, which is like the third best museum I've ever been in. I got to see penguins march across penguins marching across the beach. And it's just beautiful. It's just really beautiful. It's a really nice country. Temperature much more Ireland adjacent. Speed of life, a bit more relaxed, but yeah, so I'm back, baby, after 40 hours of flying. If I'm a little zoned out today, it's because I'm pretty much fresh off the plane after a 40-hour commute.
And I went to New Jersey.
I mean, you also had a weird time.
Everything's trying to kill you. Yeah, everything's...
Listen, you were at the Newark airport at like 2 a.m. So
I was at the Newark airport at 2 a.m., which was almost as magical as Tasmania. So
Tasmania, yeah.
But traveling, that gave us time to watch things, which is always good.
True.
That's one of the nice things about traveling in the year of our Lord 2025. But before we get into some of that stuff, just a reminder right off the bat, thank you so much. It's great to see so many familiar members of the Green Gang in here. Remember, the best way to support us outside of these wonderful super chats that we'll get to in a moment is, of course, Patreon. If you're at that $5 tier and above, you get incredible videos, an experimental video every month from a member of the team. You get weekly columns, 3 from Darren, 1 from me. You're going to start getting ad-free videos at that tier now, and we got some ideas for some spiciness at the $10 tier that we're going to be adding in the near future, so more on that soon. And of course, though, before we get into the Coyote Acme news, Quintuple A with a $5 dono right off the bat. Thank you so much. Now that Darren's back, what are some other legendary comebacks? Cleveland down 3-1 to the Warriors. Oh no, this is the wrong podcast.
You do not know sports here. I'm very,
I know
very
sports.
sorry.
That was LeBron James coming back to the Warriors, and let me tell you, the city of San Francisco was not thrilled when that happened. They were not thrilled whatsoever. What is there a good comeback? What's a good movie comeback? Robert Downey Jr. That's kind of a comeback, right?
Yeah, but also like such a great comeback and then squandering of the ball. Like part of me kind of admires the I'm going to come back, prove I'm as good an actor I was as I was in my 20s. I'm going to win all the awards. I'm going to become the darling of Hollywood, and I'm going to go straight back to getting paid $80 million and a trailer encampment to star in Marvel movies. Like,
but then he came back again. And he was in Doolittle. Or no, he was in Oppenheimer.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, after Oppenheimer, I love that he was like, there was a solid 6-month period where it's like, I'm gonna star in like Park Chan-wook's prestige HBO adaptation of The Sympathizer. I'm gonna win all the Emmys. I'm gonna star in Oppenheimer. I'm gonna win all the Oscars, and then I'm gonna get paid $80 million and have a trailer encampment and star in Secret Wars and Doomsday.
You know what?
I think he just did it. This is a victory lap now. He's just like, oh, I did it. I came back. I made a bunch of money. I won all the awards. I'm just going to go back and make a bunch of money now. I don't need anything.
Maybe he'll just keep oscillating, and maybe he'll win a bunch more awards.
I mean, I feel like once you have all of the Emmys and Golden Globes and Oscars, you don't really need that topped up for the while. This is why it's good to make Leonardo DiCaprio work for it. I mean, if we didn't make Leonardo DiCaprio work for it, he'd probably be Sentry, right?
That's
we
fair.
need to start negging our A-list stars more.
Yeah, you want Christian Bale to lose that amount of weight. You want was it DiCaprio who nearly died from eating raw bison liver? That's how bad you want them to want it.
So it's good that we didn't give Chalamet the Oscar too early. He's got to just keep going for it. Yeah.
He needs to get a little dirty. I'm thinking about a lot of the kind of old guard actors who made resurgences in the 90s. Your Travolta, your Bruce Willis's, even even your Stallones had a little bit of a prestige turn. That was nice.
Stop or my mom will shoot.
Stop.
I mean, he did star in a movie literally called Oscar with an exclamation mark. I mean, the thing that Jack is bringing up is that like the experience that we're talking about with Downey is not a unique experience. Where like it is so easy for an actor to be back and squander it. Where like Travolta's like, I'm back, and then he's in Michael, or like Mickey Rourke is like, I'm gonna win the.
Are you talking shit about Michael?
Okay, I'm sorry, Nora Ephron. But. Nora Ephron's great. I love Nora Ephron. Michael, not a great movie. Great Kitchens. Was it Lucky Numbers? Was he in Lucky Numbers as well? Am I misremembering that?
That was the one where he like hit his head and got psychic phenomenon.
It was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down. But also like Mickey Rourke as well, where it's oh my God, has Mickey Rourke come back? Has he learned his lesson? Is he going to learn to play well with others? Will he win an Oscar? And it's immediate like, no, direct to video with Megan Fox. He's so unpleasant, the Expendables cast won't hang out with him.
And he had such a comeback too, like the wrestler in Sin City, where he's like, both action genre and a heartwarming character drama. We're ready for me. Oh no, Mickey Rourke's not ready for us. Yeah. He
also had that cool parrot in Iron Man 2. Shout out to the parrot.
He's not my boy.
And then Need Around with a $5 dono. Thank you so much, Need Around. Thoughts on common side effects? Thought that the show did a good job of not being pigeonholed into one genre. Looking forward to season 2. I know I have now watched it. Casey has watched it, and he is a big fan. That's the animated series on Adult Swim / HBO. That is by some of the folks who created Scavenger's Reign, I believe. Yeah. Oh, okay. And I think Mike Judge has something to do with it as well. It's been on my queue, but as Darren and I were talking about before we went live, it's too much to watch. There's too much.
Too much to watch right now, specifically, as well.
Yeah, it's a good thing that movies
very relaxing for me. Like,
movies have been a little slow. It's like, I could go to the Minecraft the game, the movie this weekend, or I can watch one of these 10 shows that I've been meaning to watch.
I'm literally like, I'm missing the Minecraft movie premiere to be here with you guys. I want you to appreciate that. I want you to take a moment and abbreviate it.
No, Darren. I'm sorry. You're welcome. You get a couple more hours of rest
of my life. Yes.
Yeah, who are you kidding though? You're still going to see it this weekend.
Yeah,
I am absolutely still going to see it this weekend. I'm sorry, I can't help it. I have a problem.
Happens all of us. Common side effects. Have you watched that, Darren?
I have not, unfortunately. No. It's like I haven't watched Scavenger's Reign either. I had Scavenger Reign on the iPad for the flight. Yeah, like it looks gorgeous. I've heard great things about it. I had it on the iPad for the flight, and there's a point at which, like around 8-9 hours in, where you're just like, I just want to watch pretty pictures. Like I don't want things I have to concentrate on. So you begin with like The Irishman, and you begin with like The Fabelmans, and you begin with like the Killers of the Flower Moon, and you end up just watching like Day of the Dead and like The Brood and like Cronenberg nonsense.
You got some weird movies on for your iPad flight. I'm gonna be honest, both of those directions are directions I go in.
If you're on a plane, it's a great opportunity to catch up on like 4-hour movies. Like, when else are you going to have like a window for 4-hour movies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bernardo Bertolucci's 1900.
Honestly, I had like Reds. I had like Warren Beatty's Reds on my iPad, and about 9 hours in, I was like, I can't do it. I just can't.
Let me just queue up the Final Destination quadrology.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we did that too.
Great movies. I saw that you rated Final Destination 2 only 2 stars, and that upset me. So we'll talk about that later.
Are we gonna have this conversation now, Marty?
We're gonna have it later. It's the greatest car-based set piece in film history, and you gave it 2 stars.
One might argue that the fact that there's 80 minutes after that car-based set sequence is one of the problems.
Turn the movie off and rate it then. Watch the rest of it. It's a great site.
Did not complete. I like that. Did not complete 5 stars. Yeah.
I think one of the things I like so much about it is that it feels like a Looney Tunes cartoon, just like Coyote versus Acme.
I really relish that transition.
Beautiful. That was a good little catch-up goof. That is the Warner Brothers live action / animated hybrid a la Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was one of the movies that David Zaslav and the powers that be nixed as a tax write-off, along with like Batgirl and when shit just no longer appears on HBO. And we thought we would never see this movie. Everyone who was a part of it said this movie was great. It was really funny. It was something that could appeal to anyone. We thought this would never see the light of the day. However, Ketchup Entertainment, which is a company like an indie distributor, producer that's been around for like 10 or 15 years, but I only heard of them in the last few years. They distributed that movie Hypnotic, which was the weird Robert Rodriguez, Ben Affleck
movie.
Hi-fi action movie with just a very weird twist in the last act.
Their back catalog isn't something that isn't giving me hope.
No,
I love the way that Marty's like, just to go back to this Hypnotic, like insane twist in the last act, because otherwise up until that point it was doing fine.
It was doing it. It's like no. One they did, and then also distributed the very bad Hellboy movie from last year, which is one of the many very bad Hellboy movies. But also a pretty good Michael Keaton movie called Goodrich. And again, they're just distributing these movies.
Yeah,
like
right.
This Looney Tunes movie has been done, has been shot, is apparently good. They have no creative control other than the fact that they paid $50 million apparently to get it out of hell.
Yeah. I mean, did they not also distribute the recent The Day the Earth Blew Up, which is the other animated Looney Tunes movie that Warner Brothers wanted to get rid of as well, which I saw while I was over in Australia, and it's great fun. But yeah, no, doing good work. It's like now we gotta make money so they can go back for Batgirl. Like that's what the real end game is here, right?
Yeah, it's. I think Ketchup Entertainment is doing great as far as like these family movies. Like, a lot of us who have kids, like a lot of us who don't know, what a condiment are looking for like a place to. You'll get there. Don't worry.
I know. I like that.
I'm looking for a place to watch these movies. No, literally, that was just trying to set up the pun, but I had
nothing else. I think this is a good. I don't want to judge them by their past. I want to judge them by their present actions, and I feel like it's been kind of snowballing towards this. And I think this is a good thing. This is good.
It is, but there's also the existential dread that sets in of like, they paid $50 million for this. Are they going to make $50 million on it? Where like The Day the Earth Blew Up, which is cost them I think $15 million, and has made 10 and is probably going to get to profitability when you count in overseas markets and direct to video and stuff like that. But 15 is still a lot less than 50.
Yes.
And that's
but this movie's got John Cena. He's got a lot of heat around him because he's a bad guy now. People love John Cena. Will Forte. Huge box office draw, Will Forte.
you think that he'll bring audiences to heel, will he?
I see what's going on there.
I think
going on.
This has the benefit of all of the press. Like Ketchup saves the Looney Tunes. That's a great headline. If they can get this in theaters, I think it can make its money back. I think it has a good opportunity to make its money back. The problem is they are assuming that people care. And in general, what we've learned is people in general don't care about anything. So
it's also, this isn't slated to come out
not
until
just
next
movies,
year.
by the way. I just want to take a moment to focus on like Jack's like just nihilism in general.
Yeah. No,
movies are part of it, but it's in a broader context.
As soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to vote in a rare local election here that is wildly important. And when I've talked to some of my friends here in Wisconsin, they're like, "Oh, there's an election." I'm like, "Jesus Christ, you need to care more."
Yeah. Like a wildly important election that could have national consequences here in Wisconsin, and some people
of our lives
don't know it's happening. It is April Fool's Day.
It is April Fool's Day. It's CinemaCon, baby. People. CinemaCon. Okay, but the thing about this movie's set for next year. My worry is that people are going to forget this whole thing by the time next year rolls around and just be like, the movie, it'll be out on Warner, HBO Max, which it would be very funny if it eventually made its way to HBO Max.
I think you mean Max. I think
sorry, they got rid of the HBO. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and they redesigned the logo again because that's clearly the problem. It's like they don't have a catchy enough logo for Max.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes. But yes, I'm making a proclamation. Anyone who would complain about this earlier needs to go see this movie when it comes out. Anyone who complained about Zaslav shelving it is morally obligated to go see it when it comes out.
Yeah. But I mean, again, this is the general vibe of movies at the moment where people are saying they want more original movies. And it's like, you look at the box office and they're not going to see Novocaine. And I know that's a questionable value of original in that's, obviously a John Wick-esque movie. Sure. But like, they're not going to see Black Bag or whatever, like it does feel a little bit like people are, give us original movies. And then as Marty said, because of how we've conditioned audiences now, it's just, I'll wait 2 weeks and it will be on streaming. Black Bag is on streaming today. By the way, Black Bag's great, but like Black Bag is on. It's so good. It's on streaming today, as is Opus, which is on streaming today, which I think was released 2 weeks ago. There is a real vibe of like, why would I bother going to the cinema when I can just
Mickey
sit on the
17's already dated, which we talked about the last episode, I think. Which is insane.
2 weeks ago.
No, and it was pushed back. Like, to be clear, it was supposed to be released last Friday, but because of outrage over like the fact that it was just being dumped on streaming on demand, like 12 days after it was in cinemas, Warner's like, okay, we'll give you another 12.
Listen, we heard you. We heard you, and we care. So here's another week and a half. Now are you going to shut the fuck up?
Next Tuesday. It is literally next Tuesday. It's on streaming video on demand.
Every studio, every production company with their own streaming service has already done so much damage to the theater going experience, and now they're realizing that that's where they make their money, and they're all upset. And you guys broke it.
I don't think you could put the genie back in that bottle, right? Like everyone's been conditioned. So yeah, I don't know if that's something that can get fixed, how it can get fixed, but
the only way to get it fixed is to make movies with significantly reduced budgets, which will be a giant hit for all of the people who make those movies. Right, where it's like I think, you know, like your Novocaine's, like, you know, I saw the Death of a Unicorn, your Black Bags, your
stuff like Companion earlier this year.
Companion. I'm trying to remember what the Ghost House movie is. We talked about it on
Possession.
Yeah.
But the other Soderbergh one.
B. Soderbergh. That's the secret here. That's the cheat code. It's like
B. Two great movies that no one sees in theaters.
But made cheap enough to where they can make their money back with video on demand or streaming, and they can make their money back by selling to a streaming service for cheap. Mm-hmm. But that is not how people are used to making movies, and there is going to be a giant burp. There's going to be a Hollywood burp in which the old guard who is used to spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a movie will kind of get cast aside, which I'm also a little bit okay with.
Sure. I mean, it's funny that we're having this conversation at the same time that I brought it up earlier, but this CinemaCon is going on in Vegas right now, which if you don't know what that is, it's sort of like E3 for movies, but it's less targeted at a general audience and more of like journalists and folks who literally work in theaters, the theater industry and everything. And so you go to Vegas for a couple days, and then Sony puts on a show and shows you a bunch of trailers and brings out actors, and then Lionsgate does a presentation. It's just started yesterday, so we haven't had all the presentations. Sony gave theirs yesterday, and they showed a couple things. They showed off the first thing from the third Spider-Verse movie, which is now not coming out until June 4th, 2027, which is a decent chance I'm going to be dead by then. Like,
wait, hold on. When did they move it? When did they move it? Like, because did they not announce it yesterday as July 2026?
No. That was July 2026 is Spider-Man 4.
Yes.
Tom Holland
Spider-Verse.
Spider-Verse 3.
Which was supposed to release like last weekend.
It was supposed to release. Was it supposed to release like 9 months after the last one, which was 2 years ago?
I think they officially had it dated as like March 2025, Marty.
Then you got to get out of the way of the Minecraft movie. You're like, we got to get out of the way. 2.5 years.
That's the only problem with that movie. Not the fact that it does not exist yet.
It's fine. They also, I'm very excited. They're talking more about this Resident Evil movie by Zach Kreger, the guy who did Barbarian, which I'm excited for. Barbarian was good. He's talking about how he wants it to be like a lone character trying to get from point A to point B as the world crumbles around them. Okay, sounds kind of cool. That sounds good.
Isn't the rumor Mikey Madison, I believe, at the moment?
Mikey Madison, which I don't know. Again, I don't know if they're gonna. If this is going to be directly based, like if she's going to play Jill from the first game or Claire from the second game, or just a made up character. I mean, they're all made up because none of them are real. Zombies aren't real, I guess.
The documentary Resident Evil.
I mean, she was great as Squidward on last week's SNL. So
she was really good as Squidward. She was really great as a guest host who was polite and didn't walk off the stage as soon as the episode ended, unlike her musical accompaniment. The second biggest news was that apparently Sydney Sweeney is going to star in a Gundam movie, and I don't know how to feel about all of that because I love Gundam, and I'm like, whoa, Sydney Sweeney's getting into Gundam.
Wasn't she also supposed to like star and produce a Barbarella movie?
Barbarella? Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Fucking
okay.
put them all the same. They're all the same thing. Barbarella getting the Gundam.
Now that's a movie I would watch. Barbarella 2, Barbarella getting the Gundam.
I do like that Edgar Wright's also doing Running Man with Glenn Powell as well. Like,
yeah. Oh, this is happening. The cinematic universe. Oh, she went to Glenn Powell's sister's wedding. I don't know if you guys heard. I like to follow. Do you guys ever follow little celebrity gossip? Do you guys ever do a little pinch? Little pinch? Just a little bit? A little bit?
Not even. I actively look away. I
like to see who's kissing who every once in a while. If there's two people I like and they're kissing, I'm happy about it. If like one of the people I don't like, I'm like, stop kissing them and go kiss someone else.
Sure.
So that's how you feel at Chalamet and Jenner, then I'm guessing. Yeah?
Yes, exactly. Jenner, you could do so much better.
He hasn't even won an Oscar.
He hasn't even won. Well, Adrian Brody's right there. He's still talking. He's going to go on stage soon. But the thing which they've made official, which has been rumored for quite a while, Sam Mendes is directing a quote 4-film cinematic event, 4 movies, all releasing, I believe, on the same day in April 2028, which will all definitely be dead by then. 4 Beatles movies, each one centered on a different Beatle, but the stories weave together. And Paul Mescal is playing Paul McCartney, Harris Dickinson is playing John Lennon, Ringo's being played by Barry Keoghan, and Joseph Quinn, who's going to be in the new Fantastic Four, is George Harrison. We think these movies are going to just come out on the same day.
They're being sold as the first bingeable cinematic experience.
Do you think you get a discount if you go to all of them?
Well, I mean, I would imagine maybe they do surge pricing for like John and Paul, you know?
Now, like I have been to and heard of events that are like, oh, we're going to play every Best Picture nominated movie in a day. So if you to catch up, right? Yeah. And and I have seen, and personally, I have seen several movies in a theater in a day. I think if you, my gut reaction, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. I need to let you know. My gut reaction is no. I can't imagine the story will be compelling enough if you're not a hardcore Beatles fan. Now, I think there's enough hardcore Beatles fan where you can get people to watch 2 movies in a day, but 4 seems a little extreme.
I am incredibly excited to see 1 or 2 of these make way more money than the other 2. I think that's just going to be real weird.
Can you imagine being Ringo Starr on like the opening weekend box office of this and just being, I mean, he's pretty cool, but being like, yeah, okay, so I guess I am the 4th most popular Beatle by default. Yeah.
What do we have what's our temperature on Sam Mendes? Sam Mendes has made like legitimately some of my favorite movies of the century, but then the rest of his movies I just kind of zone out at.
Yeah, I mean,
I have to Google him real quick.
He did Skyfall, Spectre, 1917.
1917, American Beauty, if you want to go backwards, Road to Perdition.
Yeah, Revolutionary Road.
Yeah,
Abbey Road, the Road trilogy.
Yeah.
Like, do you think these movies are just going to be called the first names? No, Paul was already a movie about an alien, right? Like a stoner alien.
Yeah.
You act as if that would be what would stop them. They'd be like, oh no, there are so many fans of the Simon Pegg, Nick Frost vehicle, Paul.
You can't call Ringo. People are going to think it's Rango. They're going to be like, where's my Western? Where's my Gore Verbinski Gecko Western?
Yeah, where's Johnny Depp? Audiences should always be asking, where's Johnny Depp?
But no, sorry, Sam Mendes. I got too excited.
Yeah. Okay. No. So Sam Mendes has made some phenomenal movies. I think you are asking too much of your audience to say in one weekend you need to see 4 movies to get the entire experience. That is too much for your general cinema goer.
Can I throw like a really hot take out there, which is tied into the thing we were talking about, like with the dumping on video on demand, which is like this would be less of an issue if audiences had like all summer to see all 4. Like if you could say, I will finally get to Ringo. It's like it's a slow weekend. The kids are with the grandparents. We need to have a couple's night. You know what? Let's just go see Ringo. Let's just like finally break that one off.
It's my guilty pleasure. I prefer the Ringo movie. Yeah. 100%.
Just release them. I bet they'll stagger the releases. I don't think they're all going to come out on the same day. They've said they are. But I bet they
It does seem very. I mean, yes, but they also said that the Spider-Verse movie was going to come out a week ago. But like, yeah, I think we will see them. We will see common sense prevail. The thing that is insane about this is that like this means Sam Mendes is going off for the next. Was it 2 years, 3 years, making 4 movies without any feedback or whatsoever happening? No discussion, no retooling, no actual output of the work that he's doing, and he's just going to release them all on one day, and that will be everything.
Because it sounds like the thing is like these aren't going to be like 4 separate biopics. Like, oh, Ringo was born in a village. Blank. It sounds like it's going to be he's just going to
Arrested
film
Development season 4, basically, is what it is.
No, don't compare it to that. That was a mess.
But it does seem like you're going to see multiple scenes from different angles, kind of thing. Is the impression I'm getting? Like, I'm like sitting in the Ringo movie, going, I hope the guys will make it this time. I hope the Beatles will make it this time. Sorry.
No, I'm going to say like there is a fascinating 4-part TV series here. Is the same situation from 4 different perspectives, right? The same situation, and you could even like play scenes drastically differently when you're viewing them from behind the drum kit than you are when you're viewing them behind the viola or whatever Paul plays. And I think there is like I'm joking. I know.
That was like I did not expect Paul McCartney drive-by right there.
But like there is a really fascinating artistic thing you can do here that they absolutely will not do. And if they do, it will be so removed from each other because they are 4 separate movies that I don't think anyone will notice or care. Like if you had a movie... Theoretically, if you had one movie split into 4 parts, like a 4 Rooms-esque type situation, one movie split into 4 parts that is the same story told from 4 different perspectives, that could be phenomenal and interesting and evocative. But to spread it out like this, it just seems like you are thinning the artistic expression and going for that bank, baby.
I mean, I'm waiting for Danny Boyle to release Pete Best a week later. That's what I'm. That's the real like cherry on top.
Or who did the Warfare of Extraordinary Gentlemen or
the League of Extraordinary
Guy Ritchie? Oh, no, you think of Guy Ritchie? Yeah, Guy Ritchie.
Ritchie will make the watered down Pete Best version. Yes.
Oh, you're talking about the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
No, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, I think, is what he's referring to.
Turns out titles are bad.
Which is just a watered down version of Inglourious Bastards, and so that's who you would need for the Pete Best movie.
You know what? I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there day one.
Adequate. Yeah.
We got a bunch of Beatles Cinematic Universe haters out here.
Good.
No, this is going to be a mess.
You know what? Too many people are way too into the Beatles. Can we understand how important they are to rock music and just settle the fuck down with all the Beatles love? There's too much. I'm going to start actively disliking them.
I mean, I think they kind of deserve all the love.
I like that you make it like a conscious choice. I'm just going to sit down one day, going to concentrate really hard, and I'm going to hate the Beatles. Yeah.
Oh, I don't want Beatles. Oh, yeah. Obla dumb. More like it.
That was beautiful. Life goes on, but so does entertainment. While these movies won't necessarily be about the movie industry, although I guess if they ever show them filming Yellow Submarine, they would be movies about movies. We want to talk a little bit about the studio, the new Apple TV Plus show. First 2 episodes dropped. This is the Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg production. It's I would say half-hour comedy about Seth Rogen plays the newly instituted head of a fictional movie studio that is very much a like Paramount analog. He's a guy who grew up loving movies, wanting to make good movies, like actual capital G good movies. But being the head of the studio means that he needs to make movies that make money, including his first task, which is to have to make the Kool-Aid movie. The show kind of goes from there, but it follows. It reminded me a lot of stuff like The Player or even Hail Caesar, where it is a movie about making movies by people who clearly love movies and understand how fucking impossible it is to make movies in the modern landscape. And after the first 2 episodes, I was pretty smitten by it. How did you guys feel?
I mean, it's based on like there is a scene towards the end of the first episode where like he's talking to Catherine O'Hara, who's very obviously playing Amy Pascal, who's the head of Sony Pictures, who got fired as a result of the fact that Seth Rogen made the interview to tie it all together. But he has this kind of conversation where he says to her, you know, I got into this business because I love movies, and now I fear my job is to ruin them. And like you read interviews with Rogen, and Rogen's like, that is actually something an executive said to me at Sony Pictures, and I remember that moment like in my soul when he was giving me notes on a script. And he just put the pen down, looked up at me, and said, I think we're ruining movies. But it's kind of a really interesting take on that. I think it's interesting to compare this to the franchise as an obvious point of comparison, the HBO show, which was cancelled after one season, released like last year, starring Daniel Bruhl. And it's an interesting counterpoint between the two, because in one respect, the franchise is much more specific than the studio, in that the studio is about the running of a big Hollywood studio in the modern like Hollywood climate, whereas the franchise is very specifically about Marvel. It's about making what is in effect a Marvel movie and the chaos that results in that. But paradoxically, the studio also feels much more well observed, much more precise, much more firmly grounded in Hollywood, where it has these incredible cameos in there. Like from the first two episodes, without spoiling anything, you know, it opens with Paul Dano, and it has like Martin Scorsese playing himself. The second episode has Sarah Polley playing herself, Greta Lee playing herself, and like as the cast goes on, I think they've released the list of casting, and some of them are frankly astounding. And it is very much steeped in this idea of people who, as you said, Marty, people who make movies, but people who love movies, where this is shot in long sweeping takes. Each individual scene of an episode, not each episode to be clear, but each individual scene of an episode is shot in a long take where the camera will wander through the scene. And in fact, the second episode is specifically about that. That's called The Oneer, and it is actually shot in a single long take about the making of a single long take, which is a wonderfully like self-referential, snake eating its own tail kind of sitcom premise. But it is very obvious, and Rogen's acknowledged this, they sat down and they watched The Player, which is famously one of the great Oneers in the history of cinema, as the camera moves through a studio lot, passing all of these celebrities on a single day. It is incredible. And I think like the studio is just, it is a labor of love, and you can feel the love radiating off it. And I think it works because unlike the franchise where, and I say this quite liking the franchise, thinking the fourth episode of the franchise, the one with Catherine Waterston playing Brie Larson, is one of the great episodes of television last year. But I think like the studio kind of works because it plays to people like you and me and Jack, where it's like, I get the reference. I'm Leo pointing at the TV. I understand that this is meant to be Bob Evans. I understand that this is meant to be Amy Pascal. But it also works more broadly in the sense of it's very obvious that this is a sitcom about like a terrible person who is his own worst enemy, sabotaging his own endeavors. And so it works in the context of something like Seinfeld or something like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Or again, another point of reference, a showbiz show about show business, the Gary Shandling show. Or the Larry Sanders show. Like it is very obviously like in that frame of reference. And so I think it is, I had a really, really great time with the show. I found it really easy to watch. There is an episode coming up, which is one of my favorite episodes of the year. I think the Oneer episode is fantastic. I think the pilot is incredible. I think the premiere with Scorsese, like the payoff to the joke, you're making the fucking fancy Kool-Aid movie. It's just, it's just so perfect. And I just had a tremendous time. Sorry, Jack.
Oh no! I mean, you're right. It is incredibly good. It is incredibly clever, but it lets you in on all of its joke. It's on all of its jokes. It's not too clever to think it's smarter than you, because it also just has your run of the mill fart jokes, which is great. I think as I get older, I like Seth Rogen more and more, and more importantly, as Seth Rogen gets older, I think as he gets away from just kind of the standard like pot humor that he started a lot of his career with, I admire and respect him so much more as a creator. And you can tell that a lot of the studio is just therapy. Because like, spoiler alert, when we love something, we complain about it. Like when we spend some time really digging in and like venting all of our frustrations, it's because we love that thing. And you can tell that everyone involved in the studio loves the job that they do and has so much to say about it that they made a whole show just to vent all of their frustration.
And you can feel. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like it does. It also like it doesn't feel like a love-in as well. Like it does feel a bit like a mea culpa, where like
Yeah.
this is the core premise of this is that as much as Seth Rogen's executive loves movies, he's also the person ruining movies through like his ego and his arrogance and through like the financial demands, the jobs and the obligations he has to meet, but also due to like not necessarily understanding the art that he claims to love. And so it's again, it never feels particularly like self-indulgent. It never feels like it feels different than something like say La La Land or Babylon, where it's like, aren't movies like magical? It isn't cinema wonderful, and isn't it transformative and amazing? And this is like, it is that, but also it's made by human beings, and human beings are very silly sometimes. Sorry, Marty.
Yeah, no, and it's like it comes from a very sincere place, and you can tell, Seth Rogen has had his, he's kind of done a little bit of everything. He's tried to do big blockbusters that fall on their face with like the Green Hornet and everything. Obviously started on TV, but was in a ton of the biggest comedies of the early 2000s. Has recently become like a pretty huge television producer, with stuff like The Boys and Preacher and everything. So I think like you said, Jack, like as we've literally seen him mature, as in if anyone put a camera on us when we were 15 and gave us fame, we'd be very different now than we were when we were 15. So I think it's cool. It's cool to see that. And I think a lot of those cameos come from the fact that he seems to be a very well-liked guy by people he's worked with over the past 25 years, which includes getting Sarah Polley to act for she's not an actor anymore. She's behind the camera. And so the fact that she plays herself directing a movie, I thought was pretty great.
Yeah, like one of the great fun activities watching like this is to basically go, how does Seth Rogen have this actor's number? Where it's like when Paul Dano shows up at the start, you're like, oh yeah, they were in the Fablemans together. He cooked him in the Fablemans. That's why he's in the movie. Or like, when you go to like where's Charlize Theron there, it's because they did Long Shot together. And that's also why she's in The Boys. Or Sarah Polley, it's because they did, what was the movie that he did with was it Michelle Williams? He starred in her directorial debut as well. So like again, there's this real interesting kind of networking thing going on, which is absolutely fascinating. And like you mentioned the Green Hornet, like I think this is interesting to this conversation about Seth Rogen growing up, where Rogen has talked about this. He tried to play the studio game, and he was a Sony guy for yonks. And he was like Sony's inside person. He was a star that they were trying to build in the same way that Sony does like to, or used to like to build directors and stars. Like Pascal has, when Pascal left and became an independent producer, she had a Rolodex full of directors because she's always like, David Fincher will make a Spider-Man movie for us. Why not? Even though no chance he was ever going to make a Spider-Man movie for you. But like Rogen has talked about how the Green Hornet was a moment for him where he realized that if he wanted to make the movies he wanted to make, he would have to start producing them. And he would have to figure out how to game the system. Where Rogen has said, like, the key to his success on these sorts of projects is quite literally going to the studio and saying, what is the maximum amount of money you can give me where I don't have to listen to you? Like, what is the, like, how much money can you give me to a point where, like, if this fails, it is not an embarrassment for you? And that is basically how Rogen works as a filmmaker. And that is a very producer-esque mindset. And you can kind of see how that goes to, well, let's make a movie about what if I ran a studio? Because it does feel a little bit like, to your point about him as a TV and film producer, it really does feel like Rogen, for all his reputation as a guy who loves weed, and by his own account, sits on the couch at the weekend, smokes weed, and watches Jack Reacher, he really does seem like a man about town. And he really does seem like somebody who loves movies, somebody who's involved in the production of movies and film and television, somebody who understands the industry in like a way, to your point, he grew up in it. Like, he was 15 years old when he started in Freaks and Geeks, and this is his life, and he really seems to care about it. And I think that shines through in the film, or in the show, sorry.
Yeah. No, and like I think the one or episode 2 is the something I was very concerned about with episode 1, and like the wonderful story of trying to make the complicated Kool-Aid Man movie, which is a great
fucking fancy Kool-Aid movie.
right.
Catherine Hahn,
I was so concerned that was going to be the season. The season was going to be them making the Kool-Aid Man movie, and I was like, oh, this premise is going to wear very thin. But we get to episode 2, and it's almost an anthology. These are just going to be, hopefully, little stories of like, oh, here's a funny thing about Hollywood. Here's a fun joke that we can make. So we get to episode 2, The Oneer. Anyone who is interested in writing, specifically comedy writing, watch this episode and start taking fucking notes, because every single joke, every joke that is later wonderfully splayed out with like even physical comedy or verbal comedy is set up so precisely. It is what is it? Palindrome. Is that spelled the same forward as it is backwards?
It's poetry. It rhymes.
It's oh, no.
Thank you, George.
Son of a bitch. Depressed Kermit the Frog is here. Because that's how you do a George Lucas impression, by the way. It's a depressed Kermit the Frog. But, like it's every single failure later in the episode is set up so precisely, and then all the dominoes start falling. Beautifully well-written episode of television that I think is enjoyable without any other bit of context.
Mm-hmm.
And again, so perfectly structured, even narratively. Again, this is the thing with comedians. Comedians are generally good at breaking stories because in order to tell a joke, you have to understand basic structure. And that generally makes you good at doing things like horror, which relies on timing, or dramatic storytelling, which relies on like the 3-act structure. But like the setup and payoff, like the opening setup and the payoff of that episode works. Like it is a great joke, but it's also like the perfect metaphor for like this guy getting in his own way in a very literal and physical sense. His own worst enemy destroying the thing that he cares to love, or the thing that he professes to love. Like it's just so perfect in terms of its writing, and just so perfect in terms of its structuring. Yeah.
Agreed. I can't. Much like almost every single thing on Apple Plus, I recommend it so heartily. No one will probably watch it.
There's a new John Hamm show is coming out in like a week or two.
Yeah,
John Hamm is
neighbors.
Starring series since Mad Men, and I'm like, are you guys just setting this to die?
No one cares.
And you're releasing it in the middle of the month that has like Doctor Who, Andor, The Last of Us, like Black Mirror, and it's like it's on Apple TV Plus. People are definitely going to be paying for Apple TV Plus this month.
I don't know. Maybe everything gets to a second season, it becomes huge, like Severance.
No, that's true.
You just got to wait 4 years. Yeah, you just got to wait 4 years between seasons.
That's all it takes. It was also very weird to watch. I watched the second episode of this the same day I started watching Adolescence. And I'm like, is everything just a oneer now? They're totally the opposite. They are not. One is a very fun oneer, and the other one is like a very I'm going to die oneer.
Look, I know that second episode was very tough, Marty, but I think it was just as enjoyable as Adolescence. Like, it just as much fun and excitement in it.
The real downside, downside, knowing what I do about production, is the oneer actually isn't that big of a deal anymore. Like, in the days,
a real oneer is though, right?
Yeah,
not really. When you are shooting on film, a oneer is a magical feat, is truly magic. There's no way it should work because you have so little film to work with, and watching your dailies is a relatively difficult task, so you won't even know if it works until far later. Now with digital productions, you basically can watch the whole thing as soon as you are done shooting it. Cameras are smaller and lighter, the rigs are smaller and lighter, lighting is smaller and lighter. Like, it's so much easier to do a oneer now than it was back in the day of film cameras. And that's okay. They're still very impressive, just not as impressive.
And just to shout this out, because I know Marty watched the X-Files recently, like one of the great things the X-Files does is the oneer episode of the X-Files, which is Triangle, which is I think like the third or fourth episode of the sixth season. Like, that is a work of genius because, as Jack said, one of the issues with the oneer is the length of a reel of film, where historically you could only pull out like 10 minutes of like a oneer before you literally ran out of reel on the film that you were recording. Like this very famously, like Rope, the Alfred Hitchcock movie, is like, it looks like a oneer, but it's always like, let me just push in really close on this shadow and then pull back out. And nothing happened. Don't worry. We didn't change any film. It's still the same shot, we promise. But the thing about the X-Files episode, which makes it so genius, is that because of the structure of television, each of the acts is 10 minutes long. So each of the acts is exactly the length of a single reel of film, shooting a oneer from beginning to end. Like it just in terms of shouting out like the technical challenge of doing a oneer and like why that episode is so fantastic.
Also, I didn't rewatch the X-Files recently. It's always on. There's always an episode. I feel like every night I watch an episode. I just click it on and say, what's going on? Oh no,
it's like
Spooky Mulder's got a gun. What is he gonna do?
Yes.
Scully seems pretty skeptical this week.
Did she forget everything that happened last week? What's going on, Scully? What sort of zooming out a little bit, how do you guys feel about movies about movies, TV about movies? Like Hollywood's kind of obsession with itself, whether it's in, we brought up a couple of the movies, The Player or Fableman's, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It feels like every big director who grew up loving movies has done a movie about movies.
An autobiography, if you will.
Yeah. Oh, I like it.
Nice.
Yeah, but we talked about Shadow of the Vampire a few months ago with Nosferatu. Stuff like Adaptation, Ed Wood. Like Jack, do you see that as a little like navel gazy, or do you still 100%. Like seeing how? But is that good? Sometimes navels are nice to gaze at.
Oh, right. I mean, it is 100%. It's as masturbatory as you can get. At the same time, you write what you know, right? And once you are in that industry for long enough, that's what you know. You stop being a regular person with regular stories. I think it is. For me, who loves movies, I'm always okay with it because I love movies about movies because I just love movies. I think for the general audience, it can get real dang masturbatory, which is why I know, like in our show notes, I wrote so many filmmakers then instead make movies about chefs or make movies about food that are about making food, but really about making movies.
Yeah, it's process movies.
Yeah, movies about like dudes who do architecture were big last year. For example, between Megalopolis and The Brutalist, two movies that are absolutely equivalent in terms of quality. Yes.
Hey, they won a similar amount of awards just at different ceremonies.
Right. But that's why I think so many filmmakers kind of pivot to like general creative endeavors, but they're really telling a story about, making a movie. I think food is a wonderful analogy, just because it is something that every single human being can understand. I think, Ratatouille is a movie about making a movie, and dealing with
all the Mission Impossible movies are movies about making movies as well. Like it extrapolates outwards.
Inception's a movie about making movies. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Tenet is a movie about making movies. Like, wasn't every film is a documentary of its own making? I think is the Jacques Renard quote.
I thought you were going to say the Jacques Packard quote. And I was like, Jack, you said that?
Yeah.
Jacques Packard. That's what we call him on the book cover.
I'm pretty smart. Yeah. Nope.
But he has a beret and a little cigarette holder. Not a cigarette holder.
But like, to me, as long as, the thing, I want to say, Marty, it's something you said earlier, which is like the studio seems to be not holding Hollywood in dogmatic reverence. It is kind of doing its best to showcase like, oh, we love all of this. This is all great, but it also sucks a lot of the time. And I think that's the fun stuff of just like, I'm just sharing this information with y'all. It sucks in here, but also we're all happy to be here. And
it's a miracle that we talked about the same thing about games. It's a miracle any game comes out, let alone a good one. Like It is a miracle any creative endeavor involving that many different people can turn out good.
Yeah. And I will say, like, I think Jack's onto something. I'm generally more tolerant of the movies that are like a bit more cynical about Hollywood, as opposed to being like unequivocally in love with Hollywood. Like The Fablemans, which is just a fantastic movie, but it's not. When you hear Steven Spielberg makes a story about his childhood and his journey to direction, you're like, well, that sounds like the smulchiest shit ever. And then it's like, no, this is a movie about how he discovered that Seth Rogen was cucking his father and how he inflicted that trauma on a generation of moviegoers. And he feels somewhat complicated about the fact that he's literally projecting his trauma onto American culture. And it's like, oh, okay. That's an interesting pitch. That's
I feel like I have to clarify. Seth Rogen played the man who cucked his father. He did not. Seth Rogen, the actor, the man,
the comedian. Yeah. By the way, I'm going to pitch that to Seth Rogen. It's going to be called Seth Rogen, the time traveling comedian, in which he goes
back in time and cuck out all the fathers of the best directors. Yeah. You got to give them that childhood trauma.
If you don't give them the trauma, they won't make the movies that then make you a great actor. You have to do this.
Incredible. I love it. Have you gotten to see all the episodes, Darren?
Yes, I have.
Do you know how many episodes? Is it like an 8 episode?
It's 10, I think. Yeah. Let me go off the bat.
Does it do the thing? One thing I like what Jack brought up. I like that the first 2 episodes deal with different movies. Is every episode sort of about a different movie, or
It comes back to the Kool-Aid movie a couple of times, I think, without going into spoilers. So the Kool-Aid movie ends up being a deal in, say, the season finale, and it's like it is the subject of like I mentioned my favorite episode of the season, but one of my favorite episodes of the season is about the casting of the Kool-Aid movie and the conversations that ensue about how you cast a Kool-Aid movie and like how Hollywood kind of wanders into problems by trying to solve problems. And in ways, it is, again, like so much of the studio, it is a kind of a Larry David type plot where it's like they end up causing more problems than they have initially by virtue of trying to solve them in counterproductive ways.
Is Kool-Aid like still a thing? Like, I know Kool-Aid was big when I was a kid, but do like kids drink? Like, they used to be like you'd go to the grocery store and there'd be like a million different packets of different flavors, and they're all 10 cents a piece or whatever. But like, are kids just drinking like energy drinks now and like fucking Prime water or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. The Gatorade would have gone all in on like, yeah, we want you to be the movie that kills Martin Scorsese's last film. I don't imagine like that SpawnCon would have been particularly appealing to Gatorade.
That's true. Kool-Aid's an easy enough punching bag. Yeah.
By the way, I want to shout out Scorsese, one of the great actors. Like, he's one of those guys who's like, if he had not been one of the greatest directors of his generation, would have been a pretty cool character actor to just see around. Like again, Lynch is another one, because I rewatched The Fabelmans recently. Yeah. Lynch is also another one of those guys where just when he pops up on screen, he has presence. He was in like a third of the Cleveland Show, for example. But like Scorsese's really good in this. Like when Scorsese's in the chair pitching his Jonestown movie, it's like, it's fucked up, but it's clever, but fucked up. And you're like, this is good. I
just say that man is doing an amazing caricature of
a Martin Scorsese.
I also like, I was like, I need 250 million. I'm like, Jesus. And I'm like, hey, that's I'd rather give it to you than fucking Captain America Red Hulk.
Right. What was the line? It's like, I should have gone to fucking Apple. Like, at one point, or I should have gone back.
Good show. It's week to week. 2 episodes are out. I think the 3rd drops tomorrow. So big reco from the 3 of us.
By the way, half hour, 40-minute episodes. This is not an hour commitment. You're in, you're out. You are moving on to your next thing. It's great.
Yeah, I think the Warner episode's like 25 minutes. Ooh,
yeah, beautiful.
That's an Everybody Loves Raymond. That's a King of Queens right there.
It is 10 episodes, to be clear.
Excellent. Nice. I'm excited. A couple super chats and donos before we get to the rest of the stuff we've been watching, which is a lot. Pure Pyro donated over in Ko-Fi. Thank you so much, Pure Pyro. Inspired by RLM's video that introduced me to Breakdown 1997, can you think of any forgotten 90s movies? Movies like Strange Days and Fire in the Sky. Also, my Tubi recommendation is Tank Girl.
Tank Girl's on Tubi? I love Tank Girl.
Jack, you need to know this.
I love Tank Girl.
Strange Days and Fire in the Sky are two solid ones. I'm a big fan of both those movies. Fire in the Sky terrified me as a child.
Yes.
Demolition Man recently came up because I wanted to watch RoboCop on Netflix, and Netflix were like, you might like Demolition Man. I'm like, I do like Demolition Man. Thank you, Netflix. Don't know if it's forgotten, because we were talking about Stallone movies, I think, coming into this conversation.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of forgotten. It almost seems like everything has gotten like a critical reappraisal at some point.
On a long enough curve, all movies are critically reappraised.
Yeah, like it feels like Event Horizon's one of those movies people bring up all the time because they're like, fucking Event Horizon rules. And I'm like, it does.
It does. You know what? It does.
You know what? You might be right.
The best movie directed by a Paul Anderson.
Get fucked. What was it? Just another battle, another day.
One more battle. Yeah, something like I said.
They gotta change that title. That title's hard for me to remember.
One battle at a time. One battle at a time.
One battle at a time.
I think
from August to September. By the way, like in terms of like rescheduling and Warner's knowing their audience. Sorry, Jack.
No worries. I know it got remade recently, but I do think we need to take a harder critical look at The Crow.
Okay, the original Crow.
I think the original Crow is a very because especially like where we are now with like comic book adaptations and superhero movies in general. The Crow was a little part of that proto soup, as far as like if you look at Blade and look at the first X-Men movie and like kind of where we were going. Right. And so like as far as where we were going, The Crow is a really fascinating example of the awkward years of them trying to figure out. It's funny, it's interesting, it looks it has a very unique vision to it, and so I think I would like to look harder at The Crow.
And like I think Eric made a point in the chats there about like the tendency to reappraise 90s movies because generally they just look better than the average movie does now, because and to Jack's point, because they were shot on film and so had to be like lit and stuff and had to like and again that's very dismissive to say they had to put thought into things like composition and blocking and lighting. That sounds very dismissive of modern movies and I apologize for that, but they did have to put thought into blocking.
It's not dismissive because it's true, Darren.
But they had to think very carefully about those things. And so even the most nonsense, like 90s stuff, like the net looks better than the average like Amazon streaming movie, which is insane. Can you imagine traveling back in time and telling Siskel and Ebert, you guys will long for the sweet days of the net?
One of my favorite things about the net was there was a Seinfeld episode where George's dad tells George, he's like, I went and saw the net starring the girl from the bus. Like that is something like my 70-year-old uncle would have done. Forget the name of Speed and call it The Bus.
Yeah,
which honestly Speed could have been called The Bus and it would have been good.
Could have been called The Bus. Yeah.
2 90s movies that I end up revisiting pretty often that I feel like don't get talked about a ton: Go and Stir of Echoes.
Rewatch Go for the 99 season. Go rules. Go is
really good. Yeah, that was obviously one of those kind of inspired by Tarantino, triptych, different stories that one crazy night all coming together. Speaking of Sarah Polley, the star of it. Yeah. And then Stir of Echoes, the Kevin Bacon horror movie that I think got overshadowed because it came out in the same orbit as The Sixth Sense. And The Sixth Sense was like 1,000,000 times more popular. And this one was about Kevin Bacon being able to just talk to ghosts. So
it came out in the same orbit of like The Sixth Sense and The Gift, which is the Sam Raimi Cate Blanchett movie, which doesn't exist. Like it wasn't just like a Deep Impact and like Armageddon type situation.
Yeah,
it was a Deep Impact and it was an Armageddon and 2 Deep Impacts.
That's a sex move right there.
What's the way? Armageddon, 2 Deep Impacts. And that's how you were conceived. Okay, so Armageddon's the clear winner of that one. What about Dante's Peak and Volcano? I got that on the mind because Eric and I put a Dante's Peak goof in a video of ours that came up today. But is there a clear winner of Dante's Peak and Volcano?
I think it's possible to have 2 losers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's AVP, no matter who wins, we lose.
It's possible to have 2 Deep Impacts, yeah.
Bachi.
I think most people probably remember Dante's Peak because that was the one with Pierce Brosnan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that had a great scene where like they're rowing across a river, or they're rowing across a lake, but the lake is boiling because it's getting warmer and warmer, and the grandma gets out of the boat and pushes it the rest of the way and fucking burns to death. There she is. There's burning grandma.
No, Eric immediately went like that was a good shout from Eric. Was immediately like we're going to the boat scene. That's what
he's absolutely talking about. That's the only scene from the movie I remember. Yeah. Great.
It's like sometimes you have like a Paul and a John, and other times you have like a Ringo and a George. It's
wow.
What if the George one's the best?
There is a statistically significant chance the George one will be the George one's going to be the artsy one. That's going to be the pretentious one. That's going to be
what
like
if What if they're all wildly different tones? What if like one's animated?
What if Ringo's a comedy? Like
what you are. These are all great ideas. They are far too interesting of ideas to be made. They are too interesting to happen.
Oh my god! Like the John one is like a paranoid 90 minutes before he leaves the Dakota Hotel.
Shot in black and white. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Someone get Mendez on the phone.
Because I'm sure he's soliciting opinions.
Sure, yeah. If there's one thing I know about directors from the studio, they love taking notes.
Yeah, they love it.
Especially from 3 studio heads like us. Will Cooling with a 5-pound dono. Thank you so much, Will. Thoughts on Who? I'm assuming Doctor Who and not the band The Who. Seems like Disney's renewal is unlikely. Could reverting to the serial format help reduce costs and boost interests, i.e. fewer, bigger stories?
Well, I mean, it is worth noting the show has kind of done that, but like you did have the Chris Chibnall era try that with Flux, which was the first story that they did in it wasn't the first, it was the last season of the Chibnall era was Flux, which was this gigantic 5 or 6 part adventure, which was essentially one story told over 6 weeks. I don't know if that like renewed interest in it. I don't know that season is particularly well regarded or really well liked. I know the era as a whole has like general issues around it and general, kind of hazy, does it exist kind of status in popular consciousness. I would point out though that there are cases where it has worked. The Children of Earth miniseries from Torchwood, which I would recommend even to people who have not watched Torchwood. In fact, I would recommend it specifically to people who have not watched Torchwood. Don't watch the first 2 seasons of Torchwood. Just watch the Children of Earth miniseries, which was broadcast over the course of 5 nights, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it is a 5-part miniseries, which follows like a crisis happening in pseudo real time over the course of 5 days. And it is just a remarkable piece of television. I don't know that that would perform well ratings enough for the BBC, or would perform well enough ratings wise for the BBC to be like, yeah, that's our model for Doctor Who going forward. I also don't know that creatively, like, you could get away with doing something like that with Doctor Who, where Children of Earth is a, artistically ambitious project you get away with the second Doctor Who spin-off. It's not necessarily something you can do with the main show. I don't know. I don't know. I think that like shorter seasons are the way it's going to be. I know people complain about the fact there are only 8 episodes now. That is unfortunately the way things are probably going to be for the foreseeable future. I don't see us going back to 13, and I don't see us going back to 10 even. I think 8 is maybe where it's at, unfortunately. But they are getting them out roughly yearly, which is great. And yeah, it is going to be a very challenging time for the show. You mentioned Disney are probably going to drop it, much like Disney have dropped all of their co-produced programming, basically, even if it was less expensive than this. The BBC is in a state where, well, like the rest of the United Kingdom, the BBC is in a state. So, there's not... Sorry, that's a little bit of Schadenfreude from the nearest neighbor. But but honestly, like the United Kingdom is in a bad way. And the BBC is a public broadcaster in a country that is in a bad way. So your most expensive show, even if it is profitable, even if it works very well in international markets, is going to be something that is going to come under a lot of scrutiny and be very hard to justify. I don't know what the future of the show is going to be. I don't think going back to a heavily serialized format is the way to do it. I also, because that to me doesn't scream classic Doctor Who, it screams streaming show. When you think of modern serialized television, you think a lot of what is happening on streaming, the way that it's an 8-hour movie, it's a 10-hour movie, it's a 13-hour movie, etc. I don't think that's a format that works for Doctor Who, largely based on, you can go back and you can look at some of the longer classic serials. You can look at Trial of the Time Lord, for example. But you can even just look at, we talked about Flux there a moment ago. I don't think Flux worked at all. And I know part of the issue is that, I don't think Chris Chibnall was a great writer. But I do think that, just structurally making...
You said that so quietly, like he's listening.
I might be here.
He may be a fan, and he really does seem like a lovely guy, and I'm very happy. And he published his memoirs, or his new novel, which I'm very excited for him about. He had great success with that show he did with Broadchurch, which was quite good for the first season, and also had 2 more seasons. Great deal of respect for Chris Chibnall. But what?
Very true,
definitely sounds like it. Yeah, totally.
No, that's the truest thing you've ever said. Great first season,
and 2 more.
And 2 more.
I do think that Doctor Who as a show is television, and again, it is something that works tied to the televisual episodic format, where the idea is you hop in a TARDIS one week and you can be in a historical, and then next week you're in the future, and next week you're in EastEnders, and the week after you're doing Broadchurch, the week after that you're doing Bridgerton. That flexibility of format is, to me at least, a large part of what makes the show unique. And I think doing a long form serialized narrative where it is an 8-hour movie or a 6-hour movie undermines the core strength of the modern version of the show, at least for me.
Yeah.
So
I think Monster of the Week gets a bad rep. But if we think of television shows that we talked about X-Files, we talk the Doctor Who that I watched back when it got revitalized was Monster of the Week, and it's fun. And I do think that the longer format serialization gets rid of fun. In general, it is hard to have fun for 8 straight hours. You give me 45 minutes of fun. Oh, we're Roman soldiers this week because that's fun. I think that works better for the particular vibe that at least the Who that I enjoyed went for.
Yeah. And I mean, the issue is that if you turn into an 8-episode movie, it's indistinct from the Star Wars streaming shows or the Star Trek streaming shows. And it's Doctor Who has always been a bit weirder, a bit quirkier. And a large part of that is due to the fact that going back to the first episode, An Unearthly Child back in 1963, when the Doctor is talking about the TARDIS, he talks about it in terms of television, where they're like, how can you fit something so big inside something so small? He doesn't say anything about like relative dimensions or like physics or whatever. He's just like, you know how sometimes you see a skyscraper on television? It's just like that. And then the show carries on. But like the show has always understood itself in relation to television. And I think that like moving towards streaming as it did during the Chibnall era, even in things like, say, the anamorphic lenses, long-form storytelling, the musical choices, the deletion of the opening credits sequence, the moving the opening credits sequence to get rid of the teaser, those small touches, which were clearly attempts by Chibnall, and again, don't want to be too harsh on him, but very clearly to move the show into a prestige television or streaming television adjacent space, were all bad decisions that did not help the show in any meaningful way. And I think that like the show should be proud to be television.
Yes. Let's go back to some monster of the week stuff. Someone in chat mentioned Star Trek, and you know what? Yes, some of my favorite Star Trek episodes are just that, standalone episodes. Hey, this funny thing happened this 1 week. That's great. No other context needed.
You know what's like, I have been critical of like the Daredevil Born Again show. I have my issues with that show. I will say I really like the 5th episode of that, because it's just Daredevil solves a robbery. Like, it's like Daredevil deals with a bank robbery, and I'm like, that is what the show should be. Like, that's like, I'm like, give me 9 episodes like this where Daredevil just deals with a problem, and that, like, it's good. And it's like, it's Dog Day Afternoon, it's Inside Man. It's like not as good as either of those, to be clear, but it is like, it has a clear beginning, middle, and end. And I'm like, I like this. Do this. There we go.
Even robbers were Irish.
Even some of my like
okay, yes, it was tailored towards me specifically. You're right, and it was. We should be clear. The St. Patrick's Day episode, which aired a week and a half after St. Patrick's Day, because they had to reshoot the entire first episode and move the entire season out a block, which gets back to the point of like screwing up television broadcasts. That episode should have come out the day after St. Patrick's Day, and it would have been just delightful. Daredevil.
St. Patrick is like that friend you have that's like, it's my birthday month. St. Patrick's like, it's my day month.
My day month, yeah. Like, and I will say it was also really great. Like, as an Irish person, it's great. Irish criminals are unproblematic. You can do what you want with us. We're fine. Like, you know, you don't have to worry about like post 9/11 xenophobia. Like, you can turn us into bank robbers if you want. Like, I've got no problem with it. Like,
historically unproblematic Irish villains. Yes.
Really unproblematic. Couple more super chats that came in. Quintuple with another $5 dono. Thank you so much, Quintuple. Don't read this. Just take the money and run. Shit, I should have read it.
Too bad. We appreciate it.
Sussy Guru with a €5 dono. Thank you so much, Sussy Guru. I recently heard that the Snow White remake had a $350 million budget. Did they really believe that the movie would make Avengers Endgame money? I think this is a good. This could be a good segue into just what we've been watching. Because Darren, I think you and I had the fortune of seeing the Snow White movie.
Why did I went to Snow White because I was in Tasmania and there was literally nothing else showing, and there was something I needed to watch a movie before Black Bag. What's your excuse, Marty?
I like it. I like it when the lights go down and you get to see the previews.
I needed to watch the Minecraft movie trailer.
I'm like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I'll go here for 2 hours. Then I'm like, oh, this is a piece of shit. I didn't like this movie at all.
But at least I got some punch crunch.
I don't know why all these movies are expensive. I don't get it, because that money was certainly not on the screen, and I don't understand.
I mean, you didn't think that the CGI dwarves that will haunt my dreams for the rest of time were worth $350 million?
Yeah, that budget is obviously a little bit of that's marketing. Although, again, I don't even know what the marketing of this movie was like. Maybe it was targeted not at me because I didn't see a whole lot of it. All I saw was like after it kind of bombed, them being like, it's Rachel Zegler's fault for coming out.
And Gal Gadot is a precious rose that must be preserved at all times.
And all the fucking Plat Nepo babies coming out and be like, yeah, get him, Dad.
Yeah, Rachel Zegler said we shouldn't murder children. Oh, we hate her. Oh.
When are we making Evan Handler 2, Dad?
Evan Hansen? Who's Evan Handler?
Evan Hansen, that's fair. Sorry.
I don't know why I got defensive. I was just making fun of the family.
If you're gonna mock the Platt family, you're gonna mock them accurately. We have standards on this podcast, Mr. Mooney.
It was. I think I've seen all the live action Disney animated. I mean, the reason I saw it was because I really love the Disney animated movies. Like I grew up watching, the ones from before I was born. Your Snow Whites, your Peter Pans, your Dumbos, your your Bambis, and the ones like of the 90s I grew up watching, from, you know, Beauty and the Beast and Lion King and everything. And so I like seeing how they handle these in live action, even though 90% of the time they're bad.
Yeah.
I'm just going to keep doing it. Maybe I'm the problem.
You are 100% the problem. Yeah.
The question is like, okay, I don't like it. I don't respect it, but I understand why Disney would do, like, we're making live action versions of like Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lilo and Stitch, even The Little Mermaid. Probably like we could do a Hercules, we could do a Tarzan, maybe. Because the idea is that like parents who, as kids, watch those movies endlessly on VHS and endlessly in cinemas are now at the age where they can force their children to watch whatever they want, and are going to take the kids to the cinema to go see something that reminds them of something they watched as kids. And maybe even, I know a couple of people as adults who are like, actually, I went to see Beauty and the Beast because I remembered seeing it as a kid, with no shame and no shade on them, because it's like, you don't go to the cinema that often. You want to make a big night of it. You and the girls kind of go and see Beauty and the Beast because you saw it as kids and you loved it, right? I get that. Snow White, though, it's a movie from 1937. There is no parent who is like, I have such fond memories. Like, they'd stopped even re-releasing Snow White in cinemas by like 1985. Sorry, Jack.
Though I see where you're going with this. This was during the great white clamshell Disney Vault era of VHS home releases. So I could see someone growing up watching Snow White over and over again. Barely.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think it had the same cultural cachet. And I mean, I know that obviously it is the first one. It is a hugely important movie in terms of like American cinematic history. It is, not the first feature-length animated film, because people get angry in the chat if I say it is, but it is the first popular one, or the most popular early example of one, the codifier of it. So like it is a historically important movie that people are aware of, but also I don't think it has like the cachet of even something like, say, Cinderella, for example, from like 20 or 25 years later. Something like The Jungle Book from the 60s or whatever. And so like I don't get why, if Disney were gonna do this, they would, and particularly when you look at like the track record of the movies that have particularly underperformed, like Dumbo, which is from the 40s, and like, not a great movie, to be clear, Darren says, as he's about to do something very stupid and defend a Disney remake movie. But Dumbo is one of the better Disney remakes, while not being a good movie. Like, it is clearly one of like, but it is also like one of the ones that underperformed because the audience has no attachment to Dumbo as a concept. And so like, I'm like, why is Snow White going to theaters? And if you have to do, if somebody has a gun to the head of Bob Iger greenlighting these movies, why isn't it like Lady and the Tramp or Peter Pan and Wendy or even Robert Zemeckis' Pinocchio and going straight to Disney Plus? Why are you putting this in theaters? You know it's going to bomb. There is no universe where this is a massive or even average financial success for the company. It is very strange. I do not understand like the business logic behind this movie being one of Disney's big early 2025 releases.
I agree, and I agree with that. I have not seen a live action remake since the Jungle Book live action remake, and because I saw that and I said, oh, they're just making worse versions of the things they already made. Like, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, Aladdin, some of my absolute favorite Disney animated, some of my favorite animated movies, some of my favorite musicals ever. I have not seen the live action versions because I know they will be worse versions. Of that, I remember ages and ages ago reading an article about Disney's business thought of this is a way to pivot away from the original as a way to reduce the residuals that they pay for those original animators and writers. If people watch the live action remakes, obviously deals are very different now than they were back in the day, and unions for CG artists are non-existent, and for animators they were existent. And so part of this was Corpo's strategy of, if one of these takes off and we start pushing the live action versions over the next 40 years, we will pay less in residuals.
It's like the equivalent of like when like Taylor Swift like recorded all of her old albums.
Yes.
Like, fuck it, I don't have to pay that guy anymore. But
I
like,
love that even
who are
being
you
like
paying
Snow
from
White,
Snow White?
Bob's version, Snow White. Like, yeah.
Yeah. But who's still getting residuals from Snow White?
Well, but then you also just have the slow mega momentum of corpo speak, where they made a decision, and now whether or not it's a bad idea, it doesn't matter. This is the direction they're going. They cannot change it.
And also, like, you have to present these things to shareholders, and like the shareholders know, like, shareholders aren't like nerds like us. Shareholders don't actually care about movies per the studio, but shareholders like have like a big memo that says, okay, Disney's live action remakes included like $2 billion movies in 2019, The Lion King and Aladdin. So why doesn't your slate for 2025 contain at least one live action Disney remake? And that's the point at which Disney are like putting their hand in the bag and going, let's see what we got. Rescuers, no. Black, nope. Song of the, never mind that one. Snow White, yeah. We're doing Snow White. We're doing a live action Snow White.
Song of the...
At this point, just do a Kingdom Hearts movie. What are we doing?
Well,
you're right.
Just put all the Final Fantasy boys in there and let them all fight Simba.
Which is
Mickey Mouse Endgame,
yeah.
It's something Darren and I were volleying back and forth on social media a little bit, which is the unfortunate reality is a lot of movies being made now are not being made for their end product. They are being made to sell to the shareholders. They are being made to sell to the investors. And after that, the studio kind of stops caring because they've already made their money or justified their existence for the next quarter. And that's a really sad and cynical reality of a lot of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If it were just as easy as make good things and then make money, which is true for some companies, just make good things and make money.
But like not in an environment where you pump the air full of crap. Like studios have kind of like shot themselves in the foot, where it's like, what if we make good things? It's like, good, and we send them immediately to streaming, so there's no incentive for people to go see them in theaters. Like, no, do the first thing. Like, and as much as we joke about this, like, this is the same argument we have every time when we say, well, one of these movies underperformed. Maybe Disney's going to learn its lesson. Maybe Disney's going to learn that you don't need to do boring live action remakes of your animated classics. Lilo and Stitch is going to make like
Lilo and Stitch is going to be huge.
Yeah, to $1 billion.
Perfect era for that to come out.
Yeah.
Everything's terrible. What's up with a $5 dono? Thank you so much. Sticking on topic. If Disney's so hell bent on remaking their own movies, why aren't they doing it with the Muppets? Imagine Miss Piggy as a Disney princess. I'm sad that we just don't get more like Muppet Treasure Island and Muppet Christmas Carol. Great. Just take all those old ass stories, anything in the public domain, and put the Muppets in it.
I mean, there's a moment at the start of Muppets Most Wanted where like Miss Piggy sings, "The studio considers us a viable franchise," and it makes me sad now.
Like, because even Muppets Most Wanted or The Muppets, fun movies. Like when the Muppets came back for that little bit, when they were making YouTube shorts, or like when they were, they had a show for a little bit. The Muppet Show came back for a little bit. Guess what? That was fun.
Yeah, like what? Like, it's such a weird thing to leave like idle and to leave on the shelves. And it's like, I know that I shouldn't be asking for this. I know that I'm very cynical about nostalgia bait. I know that I'm like, well, Disney should invest in original properties and original movies. But I'm also like, find some people with some interesting ideas and let them do fun stuff with the Muppets. Like, it's not an impossible like concept. Just like let somebody who has some ideas play with the toys. Like, there's I went, because of course I'll mention this, I went to Cannes last year, just to name drop a place. But I remember one of the most surreal experiences of going to Cannes was you had all these old masters making like movies that felt kind of like, like eulogies for cinema, where you had like, you had like Kevin Costner making Horizon, a one of 4 movies that will ever exist. You had obviously Francis Ford Coppola doing Megalopolis. You had like David Cronenberg doing The Shrouds. You had Paul Schrader doing O Canada. These movies that are all about like this, not only about like being old and dying, but in many ways about like the sad state of the movie industry. I know that Ron Howard was there with the Jim Henson Disney Plus documentary, which they only screened once because they wanted to be able to claim that it premiered in Cannes. And it is such a Ron Howard movie because it ends with, and luckily, Jim Henson sold the Muppets to Disney, where they are a proud part of our corporate empire and will be forever. And aren't we all delighted that this corporate synergy takes place? And I remember, like, Ron seemed very happy. Ron was the only one of those directors at Cannes. It's like, yeah, everything's rosy here.
Did you guys see Solo? Huh?
You know, that was my idea.
It was a fun little movie.
From the man who brought you J.D. Vance.
No. Wait, I gotta go cry and throw up for a little bit.
Oh God. That just made me so depressed.
Uncle Ron. He has a cameo in the studio. He's very good in the studio.
I mean, he's amazing as the narrator of Arrested Development.
Yes.
When he's not humanizing the future destroyers of democracy.
I think you mean future president for a week, Vance. Yes.
I hate everything. I hate everything. When you were talking about how the UK is in shambles, I was just like, everything's fine over here. It's Han Solo in the fucking Death Star. Everything's fine. How are you?
Wouldn't it be weird if a country was in shambles? Wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah, wouldn't that be weird?
I mean, I did feel the need to specify that because there is a tendency to focus on like particular places that are bad. Just there are other places that are also bad.
Listen, we might as well just be naming the one or two places that are good.
Right?
Yeah.
Sounds like
Tasmania. Tasmania seems pretty good.
Yeah. Nick Knoll with $5 dono. Thank you so much. You heard him, guys. Darren is totally cool with more Irish villains, just like Tommy Lee Jones and Blown Away.
Let's not forget Richard Gere in The Jackal. I mean, let's throw in some Brad Pitt in The Devil's Own there, but we're at Sean Bean in The Patriot. More of those guys. Sprinkle them all in. Like, get some proper good old-fashioned Irish terrorist villains going on there. I mean, like, it does feel like for a while in the 90s it was like default to Russians because they were like, we don't know what to do. I'm like, stage Irish villains are not the worst like of Hollywood's current impulses.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know.
The worst. Sure.
We could take it. We could take it.
Yeah, there you go. A strong people.
That's just a Catholic in you.
Irish stoicism.
You and Daredevil, you could both handle it. Quintuple A with a $2 dono. Thank you so much for Darren emoting into the Disney grab bag. Yeah, if you're only listening to this, Darren put his whole goddamn arm in there.
Yeah.
Vaudevillian. I thought it was going to get stuck in that imaginary bag.
Quality mime work. Mime work. Yeah.
Sussy Guru with a €5 dono. Well, in the current political climate, Disney might just do a Song of the South live action remake. I mean, can't take it.
You know, do you guys know that like Splash Mountain used to be based on Song of the South, and they reworked it into a Frog Princess or the Princess and the Frog movie? Right,
great.
Yeah, the laughing place and stuff like that are from, like, that's the thing. If you go to Disneyland, obviously they do not advertise that it is from Song of the South. You have to do some independent, like, reading and go, these characters, they seem pretty well designed and have very thorough backstories. It's interesting they came up with all this for the ride. And it's like, oh.
Don't look at the source material. You're fine.
Yeah. You know,
listen, the whole movie's not racist. There's bits that aren't.
It sounds like somebody who's watched it very thoroughly. It's like
very short.
Yeah.
Don't let multiple racist acts of the movie spoil the whole bunch.
I love the Marty like holding his hands over the kid's eyes and ears for like 80 minutes of like so. But like they also canceled the Princess and Frog movie, which is another indicator, or TV show, which is another indicator of where we are culturally as well. So who knows? They may restyle Splash Mountain.
Bringing it back. And then Will Cooling with a £5 dono. I was just thinking 3-hour stories told over a week, a few times a year, maybe UK half terms, boost show's profile, reduces cost by requiring fewer sets, etc. I think going back to Doctor Who.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very practical solution. I don't know if it's something that would like work like for the show's public image. I do think that like it being on 8 weeks of a year, or 8, 13, however long it is on a Christmas special, is kind of important. I feel like if it's just on for a week and then gone, does it have that power? I don't know. Do you lose that cultural standing? The thing I think of is like the classic Christmas thing where Stephen Moffat was like, if we give up the Christmas slot, we will never get it back. Like if I don't like the famous story is that again, and I feel like this is going to be complaining about Chris Chibnall tangent. I apologize for that. Where like Chris Chibnall is like,
well, it's the first time you've ever done it, so it's fine.
But I'm doing a lot. I'm getting it all out of my system. But like where Chibnall is like, I'm working on Broadchurch. I want to finish Broadchurch, and like Moffat is like, okay, I've done 5 seasons of the show. I just want to leave, and he's like, no, I want to finish Broadchurch, and then I'll come in. I'll take over. I promise, Steve. And says Moffat's like, okay, fine. I can do a 6th season of Doctor Who just to buy you time because we can't have the show being off the air for 3 years waiting for you to come in. So he writes the season and he's like, okay, so it's all done. I've written the season finale. It's a really satisfying conclusion to Peter Capaldi's arc. You're going to come in. You're going to take over for Christmas, just like I took over for, you can do the Christmas special. It'll be a good way of introducing your new Doctor. And Chibnall's like, actually, I haven't really got like a Christmas vibe going. I'd rather like come in clean later in the year. And so Moffat's like, fuck it. I gotta write the Christmas special too, because if we don't do the Christmas special, we will lose the holiday slot. It's one of those things where if you give up the space, the BBC will give it to somebody else, and you can't yank it back. You can't be like, sorry, Happy Valley. Like, really appreciate you stepping into the void last year, but big boy's back now. Yeah. And then obviously, I think the thing is, Chibnall says, actually, I'd rather have New Year's the following year, which is quite nice. The wonderful payoff to that.
There you go. Wonderful. And then Vector with a $2 dono. Thank you so much. Song of the South, the ride still does have the hit Song of the South sound zippity doo dah.
Oh well, there you go.
An incredibly catchy song. From a very
just don't
movie.
ever watch any visuals that go along with it. Everything's fine. What else we've been watching? Jack, what have you been watching? You mentioned going to the theaters and seeing a movie.
Just last night, I went and saw Death of a Unicorn. With new Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega movie. Other stars are in it as well. I knew almost zero going into this movie. I think I saw a trailer and I was like, I'll go watch a movie. It'll be great. And you know what? It was fun. It was a fun little weird movie about a father and daughter going to visit the father's boss and accidentally hitting a unicorn with their car. And it's super fun. Like the boss's family are ultra rich billionaires, so you get that nice social satire about how they deal with a dead unicorn, and you get a little bit of fantasy mixed in there. A significantly more like splatter gore than I was expecting in a fun little movie, but the theater was not very full and it was still full of laughs. So I recommend it. It's a very silly little movie, a nice weird little movie that will probably bomb at the box office and not do very well, but you should see because it's very fun.
Yeah, A24 are trying to sell me a lava lamp unicorn horn off the back of this. Like, I love that like A24 have started leaning hard into merchandising in their like bid to be we're now a major studio.
Yeah. We have garbage tchotchkes as well.
To me, what this felt like was a toe dip into not prestige horror. Because, by the way, you could have taken out a lot of the splatter and I still would have very much enjoyed this movie. And like A24 is obviously most well known for their prestige horror, and I would love to see them step out of that and just make a weird little comedy. This would have worked as just a weird little comedy. All the characters' death are off screen, and I would have been very happy with that.
Don't they have the Paul Rudd, Tim Robinson movie? Friendship coming out.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah.
I know someone who's seen it and they said it is like the most batshit comedy released in decades.
But does it also have horror vibes to it?
I think it's less horror and more of like this man is like
psychotic.
Well, I mean the horror that like a lot of I think you should leave skits have. Yeah.
Well, and I guess that's my point. This is where the direction I hope they go into, where they slowly wean their audience off of horror and just make weirdo movies. And I'm very, very excited for that. Yeah.
I have faith in them. I haven't got to see that one yet, but
correct. No, that being said, is in Death of a Unicorn.
That's right. And what's his name from big flying golden man from Guardians of the Galaxy 3?
That's right. Big flying golden man.
Yeah. What's that character's name? Big Flying Golden Man?
Yeah, Adam Warlock.
Adam Warlock.
You don't know your 1970s Jim Starlin cosmic characters,
He didn't
Marty?
have a chair. He didn't have a chair in the 6-hour stream. I don't have to give a shit about him. I only give a shit about folks with chairs.
Right? You know who else was in it? that I was not expecting was Tia Leone. And anytime Tia Leone is in a movie, we're happy.
Former Mrs. Duchovny, let me tell you.
Love Tia Leone. The Madam Secretary, right?
Madam Secretary.
Because there were two again. We're talking about like the Deep Impact and Armageddon. When they're like Madam Secretary, and then there was Gina Davis one, which was like Mrs. President or something like that.
Girl Prez.
Oh,
No,
like,
there was like right at the moment two competing TV shows, which was like, what if, and hear us out here, there were women in politics.
Yes.
And now it's just like, here's 6 shows where people are in a bunker because the world was destroyed.
Also, the return of prestige television medical drama.
Oh my God.
You know what? And I thought she looked familiar. I just looked it up. If you all remember the Lil Wayne "Turned Down for What" music video, the dancing lady from that, Sunita Mani, also is in Death of a Unicorn.
I thought you were about to tell us that Tia Leone was in the "Turned Down for What" music video.
Little cameo.
Wasn't that video was directed by the Daniels?
Daniels, yeah.
And she makes a little cameo in Everything Everywhere All at Once in their little like Bollywood movie that's in there. But
that's right. Casey with the correction. Lil Jon, not Lil Wayne.
My God, my littles. I'm sorry.
Littles!
It was actually Lil Yachty that I was thinking of.
Yachty. You've been watching anything else?
Mostly, no, not mostly, entirely because my children made me watch it. I watched Arcane season 1. And based off of the League of Legends. No, is that the name of the game?
Yeah, you said of weird. It's the correct. You said the correct words. You said of weird because it sounded like you were going to say League of Extraordinary. We were just stuck in a time loop.
Well, if I remember, because it's lowercase L, uppercase O, lowercase L. That's how you do that.
League of Legends.
League of Legends. Season 1, remarkably good. I guess I've heard nothing but good things about it, though I've never been incentivized to watch it because there's so many good things out there. Mm-hmm. But my kids watched it and was like, "We are watching this together," and I was like, "Okay, great, that's fine."
Yeah,
and it's really dang good. I am slightly concerned because I hear that season 2 gets significantly hornier, and so watching that with my children might get weird, but we'll see.
I don't think it doesn't get like crazy horny. It's like
season 1
hornier.
Was already a smattering of horn.
Yeah, I guess I didn't watch it with my children.
Look, only one of us has seen Death of a Unicorn. I mean, only one of us knows from horns.
Yeah, the Horn Master himself.
This is Haley Steinfeld, right? Am I?
Yeah, and Ella Purnell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Have you not watched this, Darren? Have you not watched?
There's too much TV.
No. Sorry. That wasn't when I said that wasn't like accusatory. That was I've talked to other second winders on podcasts a bunch about it, but I think that was probably just like Nick and Casey. I talked about it. It's great, and you don't need to give a shit about League of Legends, obviously.
Interesting animation is the other thing where it's like we are. It is not an animation style that I have seen anywhere else. It is like. My kids pitched it to me as very Spider-Verse style, but it is not. It is like hints of that style. It is wonderful and interesting animation, a good story, good characters, and some very satisfying action sequences.
And quite a bit of Imagine Dragons. That theme song, pretty good.
How do you feel about Imagine Dragons? Because there's a lot of Imagine Dragons.
They literally are in the pub in one scene playing the music. The theme song is very good. Yeah. Arcane, good. Everyone watch Arcane.
Yeah.
Darren, you and I have watched a lot of the same things.
Yes.
We touched on it earlier. Have you been watching The Pit?
I have not because it's not available to stream in Ireland, but I've been
following it. Really?
Yeah, no, it's because it's a Max production. It's a Max production, isn't it? So it doesn't seem to have gone to Sky, which is where the HBO stuff would go, and it doesn't seem to have landed on any of the streaming services here. But yeah, no, I have not seen The Pit. I've been watching people watch The Pit, and I've been insanely jealous of people watching The Pit.
You've been tuning in to my Pit streams, which is my reaction to The Pit. You don't get to see The Pit. It's just me going like, "Oh my God, look at that!"
It's Marty's face. I think it's a really bold choice for you not to say anything and just to let your eyes tell the story. But like, I love that it seems to bring your father to work day. That like Brad Dourif has retired from acting aside from Chucky and being in one episode of The Pit.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And it is, we'll maybe talk about The Pit a little bit, but I kind of want to talk about the our medical dramas back ? In a second.
It's in a year where we've already had Severance season 2, we had Adolescence, which we can talk about quick, and then we have stuff like Darren mentioned earlier, The Last of Us and Andor coming. I would be floored if anything tops The Pit for me. Ooh. I love it that much, and I'm talking to Andor. I'm talking to Last of Us. Like The Pit.
So you'd pit it against any of them?
I think so. That was beautiful, by the way. You're real wily. You're a real wily one. I mean, seriously,
I've got no idea what I'm doing here.
Noah Wiley. This is a character. His Dr. Robbie is a character that immediately is on the level of John Hamm in Mad Men, of James Gandolfini in The Sopranos. I swear to God, like this is. I don't think this is hyperbole. This is on week to week, and every week I'm like, am I going insane? And I'm like, no, it just gets better every week. It's I think it was originally positioned as a spinoff to, or like a legacy sequel spinoff of ER that got reworked and is not related to ER, although it is pretty much just modern ER. Takes place in
and is the subject of a lawsuit as well.
We don't have to worry about that. He's dead. You can't sue people when you're dead.
That sounds like the plot of a Michael Crichton movie, to be fair.
Can't sue people dead.
Starring Demi Moore and Michael Douglas. Listen,
speaking of forgotten 90s movies, that one sounds great. It takes place all over the course of a single 15-hour shift at a hospital in Pittsburgh. That the show is in quasi real time, just because each episode is an hour of that shift, following the same doctors, and certain patients enter and exit. There's a huge sort of mass traumatic event that occurs and they have to deal with. But it is the most, from what I think and from what my mom, who is a nurse and says, the most realistic depiction of an ER that is ever been put to film, including the most realistic birth that I've ever seen, and the camera doesn't cut away, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, this woman just give birth? Either this is a Jim Henson puppeteering master, or this is just the most real. See, Eric knows what's going on. That woman just gives birth. You just see all the birth, and let me tell you, it was amazing.
I love the idea that it's we got one take of this, people, one take.
The truest wonder. The truest wonder.
Jack's okay, I'll give digital that one.
Yeah. Really good. I think there's 2 episodes left in it. It's one of those things that's been gaining steam. It feels like every week a couple more people watch it, and now it's when Thursdays roll around, I see a bunch of people getting stoked for it. So I'm big pit pilled.
That's the thing about a weekly television release, which you don't get with a binge, where with a binge it's all the oxygen is taken out of the room for a week and then the next thing arrives. But you have something like Ted Lasso, or arguably even Severance, this, where it gains. It feels like my Twitter feed or my X feed or whatever you want to call it, my social media feeds are all filled with people pit posting. It's great.
Yeah, open up the fucking pit. That's what I say. It's good that it's weekly because it's a very intense show, and after every episode, I'm I don't want to watch another one. I need to step away for
decompress. I maybe need to pee on the characters in the show.
Not allowed to pee. He's trying to. Every time he tries to piss, someone comes in. Is Dr. Robbie, we got a problem. Probably piss his pants.
And we can't confuse this with The Gorge, right? The Pit is not The Gorge.
Yeah, not The Gorge.
Okay, great.
Also, not to be confused with Pulse, which is the Netflix medical drama, which is launching at the end of this week about a storm in Miami, which also takes place over the course of a single long shift, but uses the device of flashbacks in order to extend that shift somewhat. But it is interesting that there's something in the air where between that and Doc Odyssey, it's what if we put doctors on TV again?
Yeah, do you know Doc Odyssey, Jack?
No, I've never heard of these things.
What's his name? It's the guy from...
It's Joshua Jackson, baby.
Joshua Jackson from Dawson's Creek.
John Johnson is the captain. And
he's a doctor. He's a doctor on a cruise ship.
Called the Odyssey.
It's called the Odyssey. Dr. Odyssey. And every episode's she got bit by a shark. Or she had too many Mai Tais and got sunburned or something.
Monster of the Week doctors. Bring back House. I love it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, House, again, you're on social media. House seems to be big with the kids, which is great because as somebody who watched House, I will go back and I will watch clips from House and be like, man, that show was fucking crazy.
Yes. Because it was allowed to be, because next week something else happened.
But also after
like
after
House.
100 episodes, you're eventually like, well, okay, what if one of them's a werewolf or something? I don't know. Like,
I think I saw that joke that was like season 1 of a medical drama, like incredibly realistic depiction of open heart surgery. Season 9. Oh shit, Dracula's here. We gotta fix him up.
your
Right,
new
like-
patient is Dr. Acula. But
Yeah.
sorry.
What season in Grey's Anatomy did they have to deactivate a bomb inside someone?
That was relatively early on, and that was the Super Bowl episode.
That was a sweep. That was the big like.
That, I think
and
that
like
was like the post Super Bowl episode where it's like this dude's got a bomb in his stomach.
Yes.
We watched The Dark Knight and we took some notes from it. I mean, also, like, didn't Katherine Heigl fuck a ghost in that show?
Sure,
You're thinking of
But
Star
they
Trek:
were
The
in
Next Generation. And
Also-
Dr. Crusher.
No,
I think
that's
that
Dr.
episode might have
Crusher.
been-
Like, yeah.
Also, that episode might have been before Dark Knight, so Christopher Nolan might have stolen it from
Grey's
was
Anatomy
08,
fan,
right?
Christopher Nolan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good call. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because the show's been on for like 22 years now.
Yeah.
And good call. That is, yes, from the episode Sub Rosa, in which Beverly Crusher fucks a Scottish ghost who lives inside a candle. That is an
Right.
episode of Star Trek that actually
Yeah.
exists, as myself and Jack explained to Nick at one point.
For a second, I thought that was
Go.
Grey's Anatomy. I'm like, oh, I didn't remember the ghost looking all like green and ectoplasm.
I
Jeffrey
think in
Dean
Grey's
Morgan's not
Anatomy-
looking great lately, no?
In Grey's Anatomy, the ghost fucking was just implied, not explicitly shown as it was. in Star
Romantic.
Trek:
It was also ghost lovemaking because they were in love. So there it is.
And time goes by so slowly, and time can do so much as they work on pottery together.
Beautiful. Shout out to Swayze. Rest in power. Darren, what else have you been watching? Sorry, that's a very big question because you've been watching everything. But
Yeah, I mean, I watched a couple of Scorsese movies, a couple of like Spielberg movies on the plane. Watched a bunch of 70s movies, like really loved The Parallax View. Night Moves, vintage Gene Hackman, which is great. And the rare 70s movie where they're like, you should not objectify a teenage girl, which I really appreciated because so many 70s movies are like, you know what? Not really that bad. But yeah, no, Night Moves, which is the Gene Hackman. It's a private investigator movie. He's tracking down a missing girl. Just Hackman being Hackman, which is great. We talked about it when we talked about Hackman having that kind of skill of just being able to anchor a movie and just seeming like the most sane person in the world and somebody who like starts out as frustrated and is going to get to yell by the end of the movie, and when he does, it's beautiful. So Night Moves had a really great time with that. The Long Goodbye, which is the Robert Altman movie starring Elliot Gould, which is just a delight. I hadn't seen that before. That was on my list of 70 movies to check off. I was apparently on like a 70s like paranoid private investigator kick.
yeah, was there a reason? Like, are you prepping for stuff? Did the Russos announce that Doomsday is going to be like the Parallax View? You're like, I gotta prep.
Elliot Gould will return. Like he was the like 27th chair, just off to the right of like Robert Downey Jr.
That would get me back in. Elliot Gould's in. I'm in.
Gould? Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was literally just a case of I was getting on a plane and I wanted to watch some movies that I hadn't seen in a while. And like I saw Night Moves because people had recommended Night Moves to me, and it's pretty good. Parallax View I had wanted to see for a while. And so like it just felt like a good time to watch it.
Parallax View.
Parallax View is incredible. It's like just visually stunning. It's Alan Pakula who did this paranoid trilogy of like Clute is I think the first one, Parallax View is the second one, and obviously All the President's Men is the third one. Clute is incredible. I think Clute is somewhat underseen, or at least it was about a decade ago. That's Jane Fonda and Donald Sutherland, and it's a really wonderful, really depressing in a way 70s movies are. Movie about like surveillance, paranoia, mistrust, and love. And if you haven't seen that, I'd recommend. And also, as you said, The Parallax View as well, which has a surprising Thor cameo in it, which I was not counting on. And also, we both saw this, Marty. I think. Did we both see Black Bag?
Yeah, I was when you were just describing Clute. I was like, all those words could also apply to Black Bag.
Yeah, which is just great. Like, this is the second Soderbergh movie, and again, it is almost showing off that Soderbergh's like, yeah, I made two of the best movies of 2025, and it's the 1st of April. So good luck.
I only spent $15. What are you doing, Disney? Let's go.
I shot them on a cornflakes box. But Black Bag is great. And to Marty's point, I think Marty made an observation. We were talking about, I think, the studio being just 30 minutes. Black Bag is like 93 minutes. It's literally in and out. It is just such a delight. It is A very simple, very basic premise. You have a character called George, who is a spy, played by Michael Fassbender, who is married to Kate Blanchett. He's tasked with rooting out a mole in British intelligence. Naturally, suspicion falls. And again, this is in the opening scene before the title card of the movie appears. Suspicion falls on his wife, Kate Blanchett. And so you have this kind of like game between the two of them and between various other interested parties within British intelligence. And it's just a delight. It's again, one of those movies that is of a piece with shows like, say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, or like The Agency, which also stars Michael Fassbender, about this idea of like marriage as a kind of detente, where like marriage isn't like a partnership, it's not a collaboration. Marriage is this kind of thing where you're both very good at what you do, and the question isn't whether or not you completely understand or know each other, because human beings are fundamentally unknowable. It's how much you respect and trust the other person to be the person that they are. And it's just delightful. It has an incredible cast in it. Obviously, we mentioned that it has, Fassbender, who is like in peak Fassbender mode. He's playing a character called George, who feels very heavily inspired by Jean le Carré's George Smiley. He's this glasses wearing, possibly cuckolded, kind of like mild mannered gentleman who everybody.
Like, Seth Rogen.
Yeah, traveling through time, but like,
I'm just saying, Seth, call us. We got an idea.
I love that your George Lucas is sad Kermit and your Seth Rogen is like horny Kermit. But
inside of us there are two wolves.
two Kermits, yeah. You also obviously the guy who was in Furiosa, the guy who played Orson Welles and Mank. Yeah, Tom Burke, I think it is. Yeah. You got Mary Bella, who was the woman who played Amy Winehouse in Amy, for example. You've Naomi Harris.
That movie up. That movie was bad.
Okay, I was just putting in the context of. Yeah, she's really great. I mean, they're all really great in this movie. And again, it's a really fun, classic throwback spy thriller kind of suspense movie. Pierce Brosnan has like an absolutely incredible borderline cameo, but like nobody eats sushi angry like Pierce Brosnan, which is incredible. And just I had a really tremendous time with it. It is an old-fashioned, kind of like 90s, 93-minute long movie that feels like the kind of film that you would see in cinemas 5 or 6 times a year during the 80s or during the 90s, which just no longer exists and is just a delight to watch. It's just a fun time at the movies.
Soderbergh is saving cinema. It's happening.
I'm now thinking, who's the celebrity you could picture the least eating sushi? Like, I can't picture Al Pacino eating sushi.
I was about to say, is this like that face is seen on iPhone? Like, or like that bit in like A Complete Unknown where Timothée Chalamet rides a motorbike and you're like, that's CGI. I just know that's CGI.
Can't be. That's sweet point. That's sweet point.
Have we brought this up on the podcast? iPhone face?
No.
I don't know.
This is a term that I only heard recently, and it's blowing my mind. Yeah, that iPhone face is a real thing. For those of you who don't know, it's the idea that you can't believe an actor or actress in a period piece because their face looks like they know what modern technology is. I've heard the analogy of it very similar to someone in like a medieval period movie that clearly has plastic surgery done, where it's just because Timothée Chalamet has a face that that kid has looked at an iPhone, you can't believe that he's in Little Women or some bullshit like that. And I did not know this existed. This like concept iPhone face existed, and it is blowing my goddamn mind.
But that means we just can't do period pieces anymore because everyone has looked at a phone at this point. Like, we still got like, if you told me Daniel Day-Lewis has never looked at a phone, I'd be like, yeah, I believe you. But we don't have anyone who's 30.
But it's like character actors. That's it. It's like it has to be character actors. Like Paul Walter Hauser, for example, I think could play somebody who's never looked at an iPhone.
Barry Keoghan feels like a guy.
Possibly,
he'd like suck up cum at the bottom of a bathtub, but he wouldn't look at a phone. That was in a movie. That wasn't just something that was in Saltburn. He did that. That wasn't a weird thing. I mean, it was weird that I said that. Shouldn't have said that.
I also like let's just move past the bathtub. It's like he wouldn't look at a phone. Like I like that it's like it's a choice thing. It's not like he existed before phones existed. Like if you put a phone in front of him, he'd just look the other way awkwardly.
That's because he's busy slurping up the bathtub.
I do love, by the way, that like Sabrina Carpenter gets messed around once by Barry Keoghan, and all of a sudden she's surrounded by Buckingham Palace guards. But though to that point, you mentioned the sushi stuff. I kind of want to see it because I can imagine it and it doesn't look right. But any of those, again, like 1970s character actors, like Gene Hackman eating sushi would be like an incredible scene in a movie. Like
He just
Hackman
uses his fingers, which I would appreciate. He would,
that man would use a fork, and you know it. Just
yeah, he'd be having a really unpleasant conversation with deeply unsettling undertones while doing it, which would be great.
Yes. What came to mind immediately? I don't know if she counts as a celebrity anymore, but Bjork. I can't
imagine her ingesting food other than like cotton candy.
Right. That's like problem number one is I can't see her eating food. But then like the like delicate manipulation of chopsticks, it just seems like she would, play with them rather than eat with them.
Yeah.
Cary Grant is somebody who I can see just pushing it back across the table.
Yeah. Anything else, Darren? I mean, yes, a million other things, but what else? What else?
I saw The Residence, which was on Netflix, and I quite enjoyed it. It is one of those, like, again, like a streaming show. This meeting could have been an email. It feels like it would have been a really great 2-hour murder mystery movie, but it is a broadly enjoyable 8-episode murder mystery TV show, but it is very charming. Giancarlo Esposito's in it. It's got this great cast. Brosnan Pinochet, which is great.
Yeah,
just like,
from Perfect Strangers?
Perfect Strangers, yeah.
Balky. Shouts to
I
Balky.
love that. Yep, and obviously like Beverly Hills Cop and stuff like that. It's just great to see that actor back again.
And the Langoliers, the Stephen King adaptation.
I don't know why the cast of Severance is hanging out here, but that's fine.
I think Eric is kind of nudging us towards finishing within the 2-hour mark. So I also enjoyed Severance season 2. I think you've also watched Severance season 2.
Yeah, what did you, without spoiling, what did you think of the season? I mean, the first season seemed to be universally lauded. The second season seems like it had a bit of rockiness. People weren't getting on board, but I personally think it ended super strongly, and I just like the whole thing, honestly.
Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It has that thing that a lot of modern streaming shows have, modern prestige like dramas have, which is the sophomore slump or the difficult second season, which is the idea of like a production team that have spent all of their energy on getting the first season to work. Like they spent years visualizing what the first season's going to be. They've had to pitch the first season beginning to end. They've had to like structure it. They have to like, cast for it. They have to build towards the end of the first season. And you get there and it's incredible. And then there's a real, so what happens now? And I'm thinking Westworld is one of the great examples of that. I think everybody's thinking of Westworld. But like, there are plenty of examples of that. Legion would be another example of that. And I am fonder than most people of like that kind of difficult second season, because that's when it starts to actually feel like television rather than an 8-hour movie, because you're doing what television is, which is making it up on the fly. Like you're having to figure out in real time how you do this stuff. And I think that I think Severance manages its second season better than, Legion, better than Westworld. I think there are some growing pains in there. Interestingly enough, like Marty, you mentioned the start being rough. I thought the start was phenomenally strong. I thought the first half of the season was incredible. I think you get into some difficulty towards the end of the season where they kind of have to rush a bunch of stuff and like focus very heavily on a set of characters in order to move the pieces to the board where they need to be for the finale. It's like you have the Kobold heavy episode, for example.
Yeah,
you have
Gemma heavy episode.
The Gemma heavy episode, yeah. And I think those episodes are very good individually, but I think they throw off the rhythm of the show coming pretty much
especially being back to back. You're almost like, we have 3 episodes left. Where are my boys?
Yeah, you have,
and that's all right.
Coming back to back late in the season as well, where the thing to do would be to put at least one of them like at least midway, maybe even earlier in the season, and kind of split up the season that way. But yeah, broadly speaking, I enjoyed it. I thought the finale was great. I thought the finale was incredible. I think the closing moments of that finale are absolutely stunning. I think the closing shot, to bring us back, I think I was talking to you off mic about like another great closing shot that's coming up in April on television. But like, a really great closing shot for that season, which is something that I will be thinking about for a while, which is kind of perfect. And I know they've picked it up for a 3rd season, and I know they're going to like have to deal with that cliffhanger. But it is one of those moments where it's like, if the show actually just ended there and there was no resolution, I know the internet would be very angry and there'd be flaming pitchforks and like bomb threats and stuff like that. That's fair. But I would be like, I'd be satisfied with that. If that was the last time I saw those characters, I'd be like, this is maybe the best place for me to leave them in this precise moment. But yeah, what about yourself?
Yeah, I really, really enjoy even the sort of the slumpiness in the middle. I liked them as like I think time is going to look very fondly on this season when you're not waiting week to week and being like, oh my God, what is happening? Are they going to stick the landing? I think people are going to be like, oh, the Gemma episode and the Harmony episode are like kind of incredible, like 45-minute totems of television. And like you said, the I think it absolutely sticks the landing. We'll see if the third season can follow up on this. I think it's going to be a lot of pressure because it seemed like throughout the second season's really when the fan base kind of grew and it became like the monoculture show of the moment, if we still have those. But yeah, we'll see.
Oh, and again, this is as I'm talking to a Lost fan here. I will say maybe the part of the second season which didn't work for me as much as the other stuff is the bit when the show, kind of to your point about becoming a monoculture show, had to slow down and explain what it was doing and why it was doing and what these elements were. And I'm like, as a viewer, I don't actually care what macro data refinement is doing. I care about Mark S, and I care about Mark, and I care about Gemma, and I care about Dylan. I care about these characters, and I care about their relationships to one another. I don't need you to tell me what the goats are for. I understand that it is a metaphor for the idea that we work in jobs that we don't understand. I don't need you to make me understand what is meant to be ununderstandable. And I think there were moments in the season where it felt a little bit like, to your point, it was like the normies have found the show.
They're now shipping different couples of the same characters.
The same person, yeah. Like, and again, I don't want to. I always worry that I come across negative, or I'm complaining, or I'm dissing people. I'm not complaining or dissing people, but like
except when it comes to except for Chibnall,
Chris Chibnall. Okay. Let's give me 30 seconds on why Chris Chibnall's great, like just to balance it all out. Chris Chibnall is the only showrunner of the revival era of Doctor Who didn't have a lead actor who A, quit claiming that he had created an unsafe work environment where it was lucky people didn't die, or B, had to step aside from the role after receiving back or knee surgery. So go Chris, good job. Well done. Like, okay, that's the Chris Chibnall praise con.
Ran a tight ship.
A really good line producer. Chris Chibnall is a fantastic logistics line producer, to be clear.
Broadchurch season 1 is legitimately great.
That is such an insult. This director, writer, creator is a really great line producer. Nothing against line producers, just
that train arrived on time, Marty. And none of the passengers were in any way uncomfortable. I think that's an accomplishment, and I think we should celebrate it. But
first of all, we talk constantly about how hard it is to finish a creative project.
Yes. Like I know it sounds like I'm being sarcastic. That is like a remarkable, like, fucking Christopher Eccleston destroyed his creative relationship with Davies because Davies had no idea how to run the first season of Doctor Who, right? Peter Capaldi and Matt Smith required the same knee surgery after spending 3 years in the lead role. The fact that, like, Jodie Whittaker was able to not only, like, do the role without requiring major surgery, but also have a child while doing the role is a testament to Chibnall as a producer who cares about his actors and creating an environment that is safe for his actors, which is important and does deserve praise.
I don't understand. Two actors required the same knee surgery. Why? How was that on the show? Like, showrunner? Just generally.
Sorry. No. It was just like the pressure of doing the role, like the running, basically the amount of.
Gotcha.
David Tennant required back surgery. Matt Smith required knee surgery. Peter Capaldi required
Doctor
knee
Who,
surgery.
for those who don't watch it, like the Doctor is an active character. Like episodes are akin to action movies. Sometimes they are.
I literally did not know that. Much. I've never seen. Okay. I just thought he was always hanging out in like a phone booth, like saying weird.
No, they are one of the. In fact, not to. Pun,
I stubbed my toe again. It's like, who left the fucking box at Moffat?
Moffat. One of the running gags during the oh my god, I'm going to forget his name.
The Davies era or the Eccleston Tennant era.
Or I was going to say the Tennant eras was how much Doctor Who ran, and that was one of the great running jokes of the Tennant eras.
But, running jokes.
Yeah, get surgery. That's not a joke, Jack.
But yeah, no, like literally the show is like one of the great like histories of the show is running through corridors. Like an oral history of Doctor Who is called Running Through Corridors because that's what the show is.
But anyway, Cruise on set. He'll show you how to run.
That's Eric. Eric has a great shot. There's David Tennant. That's a man who required back surgery when he was done with that role. But to get back onto the point of like Severance and the larger audience, I do think that like one of the surprises or challenges I had when that season ended was like my surprise at the audience reacting to that ending and like being angry at a choice that a character made, which was meant to be confrontational. Like, it was intended to be confrontational to the audience. It's meant to be something that catches the audience roughly off guard. I think it is well signposted. I think it makes sense for the characters. I think it makes sense within the world of the show. But it is meant to be a moment that makes the audience breathe in and go, what's happening? But like, the fact the show has, to Marty's point, reached that plateau of the normies are watching it, people are like, no, that character deserves to rot in hell, that lying bastard. Yeah. And it's like, and I'm like, have you not been paying attention to what the show is about and the themes of the show and like what the show has told you? And it is interesting to just have what had been, as we said, this quirky show on a streaming service that nobody watches suddenly become the subject of like lost level public discourse.
It broke containment.
It broke containment, which is it's great for Apple and it's great for the show. It's just, it is something that I think they were mindful of when they're like, okay, we have to explain what the fucking goats are doing. And I'm like, I don't really care what the goats are doing. I just like that they're goats.
I just like the goats. I think that was cute. Yeah.
I was watching, because I was in Australia when the finale dropped, I was watching it in the like shared space with my siblings and my parents or whatever. And my mom, to her credit, managed most of the finale rather stoically. Where like it's like, okay, there's a marching band. Okay, they're playing Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project. Okay, there's a ventriloquist dummy doing a comedy bit. Okay, I'm with you so far. I do have one question, Darren. Is that a goat?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And I do want to check out actually
with that goat. Yes, it is Brianna.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Also, while we're referencing Mooney Family Movie Night on Holidays, I want to shout out Companion because we mentioned it earlier.
Oh, nice.
Yes, we watched Companion as a family movie night because obviously we were all on the same continent and we thought we should watch a movie one night. That movie goes down an absolute treat not knowing the twist because my parents didn't know the twist, my siblings didn't know the twist. So like when that movie, which Eric is kind of showing the poster, which gives away the twist, but they went in not knowing anything about the movie. So when that lands, it was again, it's just one of those things to be in a room with people who don't know as much about movies as you do and don't know as much about movies going into them as you do, where I really wish that I had got to have the experience of seeing that movie knowing nothing about it.
I feel the same way about Abigail last year, where it's like they were just marketed that way. Like they had, Abigail and Companion showed the twists in their trailers. And I'm like, I wish, I don't know. I somehow just didn't see trailers, but I'm stupid and I click on things because I like watching moving pictures. A couple super chats to close out the episode. Vactor back with another $5 dono. Thank you so much, Vactor. Are you ever going to do Robo-Jocks for movie night? The best Russian villain ever, and of course, corporate takeover of war. Also, Arcane's really good. Robo-Jocks.
Arcane is really good. You should watch it, even if you're on the fence about animated stuff. Really great. Robo-Jocks, the movie that broke a production company. Fantastic movie. I think it was like the largest. Hold on for a second. Let me.
So it's like a Michael Cimino's Heaven's Gate or a James Gunn Superman level movie, yeah?
Spoilers, we still got a few months left before that second one.
Right.
No, I know, but you saw the news reports that are like, by the way, to be clear, if Superman doesn't work, Warners are like dunzo. What's it? Warners are going the way of 20th Century Fox?
No. Which is, Disney's going to buy him? Oh, no.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no. First of all, oh, no. Empire Pictures, created by Charles Band, B-movie auteurs, shoved a ton of money into Robo-Jocks, a futuristic, we now fight wars with that we treat wars like sporting events where giant mech warriors fight each other, using claymation mech fights. Looks adorable, looks terrible, cost so much, literally bankrupt Empire Pictures. But because of that, because Empire Pictures died, we did end up getting Full Moon features later on in life. So, for B-movie tours. But maybe one day for a movie night, we will watch Robo-Jocks. Every month we do a Phoenix tier level movie night where we watch a movie live with our Phoenix tier patrons. We watch all sorts of fun movies. We watched Donnie Darko with Seth Rogen in it just the other week, and it was a lot of fun.
I thought you were saying
director's cut or theatrical cut?
It was the director's cut. because I was watching it. I don't think I'd ever seen the director's cut, and I've seen the original cut like a million times. And all of a sudden, words popped up. I'm like, "What the fuck are these words doing here? Get these words out of my Donnie Darko."
We didn't know any better, so we watched the director's cut. Yeah.
Okay.
Still a great movie.
Good old Richard Kelly. Like again, it's very much a box type situation where it's like you have like the theatrical cut of Donnie Darko, which is just perfect, like the idea for the box, and he's like,
Yeah.
What if? And hear me out here. More on top, and like, no, you don't need more. It's okay.
No, you're fine. You're fine. And then Sussy Guru, the €5 dono. Thank you so much. They have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever. Last episode of The Pit is just an alien invasion. I mean, sure.
Like Sugar. We're talking like a Sugar-esque twist.
Yeah.
I do love that.
We got it. We got to perform open heart surgery on the alien.
Is that a reference
Do
to
no
the
harm.
1981 Canucksploitation movie, The Pit?
Oh, good shout.
Canucksploitation? The Canadians are out
Blame
here
Canada.
exploiting?
The Canadians are there. It's a real thing, apparently. I never believed it as a term, but there's a famous movie called The Pit, only one T, from 1981, and I believe
It's got aliens?
it's been a hot minute since I've seen it. I'll be
it looks
honest
like
with
there's
you.
like a little creepy little ET thing he's carrying in the picture Eric's
There you
got
go.
there.
There you
There you
go.
go. Nice little pit.
There you go.
I think that'll do it for us.
I think you're forgetting something.
Oh my God. We've given you a lot of recommendations this episode, but honestly, you could throw those all in the fucking bin because there's only one recommendation that matters.
You can throw those all in the bin because most of those recommendations either require you to leave the house and go to a movie theater or sign up for some sort of subscription service. But what if you could just watch something without having to sign up? That's right. It is time for To Be Fair, in which
We
I
need like a
recommend-
musical sting for this.
Yeah, we need like a little video intro that we
Yeah,
just like
well-
push a button in. I love that we're like, let's heap work on Eric here. It's like,
Yeah.
Eric, can you knock that up in like 5-10 minutes?
Listen, Eric will gladly put everything else aside for a goof.
First of all, we will not even joke about giving Eric that work because he will do it. The things that man has done just for a goof. Oh, we love you, Eric, so much. But I got a couple good recommendations here. One is if you have never seen Memento, you can watch it right now on Tubi. I recently watched that with my kids, just because like we're kind of getting into, a lot of, good movies that they're older now, so they can watch more complicated movies. They love a good high concept movie. Memento is free to watch on Tubi. You don't need to sign up. Started a dynasty, if you will.
I think that director.
I've watched that movie so many times. I think I know it backwards and forwards.
Oh, that was good.
Nice.
I like it.
Nice. Yeah, don't memory hole this movie. It is solid. It is
It's
absolutely solid.
unforgettable, isn't it?
Ariane Moss.
It doesn't gather any carry-on. I don't know. What are you just? It's like whose line is it anyway? Where you're like, okay, the subject is now. I want you to do retrograde amnesia. Can we get a pun with retrograde amnesia in there?
Featuring star of Robot in the Family, Joey Pantolianos.
Oh, Joey Pants.
Joey Pants.
Joey Pants is in it. And actually a movie I have not seen since it was released, and I am planning on watching tonight on Tubi. Will Ferrell, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Stranger Than Fiction.
Oh,
I remember really liking that movie when it came out and then just absolutely forgetting it existed. So,
yeah.
Fun fact, you know that in The Sopranos, Joey Pantoliano based his wig on Christopher Nolan's hair.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, there's a fun fact for you.
In my mind, Memento and The Sopranos shouldn't have overlapped for some reason, but they do.
No,
Like-
he was in Memento before he was in The Sopranos.
I know. In my mind, that shouldn't exist, but like Memento was like 2000, right? Or 99, 2000? Yeah. I don't. In my mind, those were like those are disparate eras. You can't have that.
Yeah, because everyone knows that Carrie-Anne Moss was the biggest stars of the late 2000s. Yeah.
I don't know why it fucked me up so much.
Good shout, Eric. Yes, that is Christopher Nolan's hair on Joey Pants' head.
That's pretty good. That's
Great
pretty
head of hair. Just a great head of hair.
And
But yeah.
and James Gandolfini based his role on the third Nolan brother that we don't talk about.
Oppenheimer.
I was almost going to say Odyssey or whatever.
I do love the theory that like he did it to get rid of the Google whack on Oppenheimer and Nolan.
That's one of my favorite things where even if it's not true, I still like believing in it. It's like Santa.
Yeah.
It's so nice. I like living in a world.
How do you feel that brother felt like watching him accept the Best Picture Oscar for that?
Proud? Upset? Some of those other emotions boiling back up? Man died. Don't laugh at that.
Yes, that's fair. Yeah.
I won't.
I'm just kidding. You can laugh at whatever you want. Jack, what do you got going on? What should folks check out in your neck of the woods other than these Tubis films?
So many great things. One, if you haven't yet, Marty put together, you adapted an article that you wrote as a Patreon exclusive into a video that you and Eric made together. This wonderful video about kind of the disparate and depressing state of digital storefronts, which I also think can apply to the digital storefronts that are streaming services.
Oh my God. They don't know me. Why don't they know me?
It is shocking. Like, so Marty and Eric put together a fantastic video essay talking about the digital game stores. But I think the same can apply to things like Netflix and Amazon Prime.
Anything algorithmic,
anything algorithmic. They know all the things I have watched. Why are you giving me the shittiest recommendations in the world? So go watch that. It's a fantastic video. Episode 4 of Adventures Nigh, season 4, episode 4 came out last Saturday. Catch up on that. Such phenomenal work that the team has been doing there, animating, and it's obviously it's just a show that I love so much. I love playing D&D with people and then animating the goofs. There's nothing better in the world.
Love the goofs.
Love the goofs. And then Jess and I will be back on Thursday to continue our Bucket Lord challenge.
Yeah.
What is Bucket Lord?
There's a game called Lords of the Fallen, and there is a specific challenge where you have to use buckets as weapons, and they give you bucket clothing instead of armor. It's a whole thing.
All right,
it's really nice.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Darren, what do you have going on now that you're back? You've been gone. However, your presence has remained in 3 columns a week. And let me tell you, I am shocked I got all those up and didn't fuck anything up.
That was the hard part, Marty. That was the really difficult part.
No, yeah, you did a little bit of work by pre-writing like upwards of like 15 columns before you went on vacation, but I kind of had to.
The hard part was just hitting the schedule. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I will say part of the joy of that is that because I was very lucky in that I got to write about things that were coming out because certain, providers were willing to give me movies and TV shows ahead of schedule. So like I got to write about like Mythic Quest, I got to write about like the studio, I got to write about Daredevil and things like that because I got to see those far enough in advance that the studios were willing to let me do that. But I also meant that I was able to like basically do whatever the fuck I wanted, and occasionally be like, yeah, I'll write about this 70s season of Doctor Who on here because sure, why not? Yeah, I'll write this like occasionally like fist in the air rant about the state of modern art because I have a gap to fill in the schedule. So you can go back and you can read those columns. They're all available. They are on like a nice little list within the Patreon at the $5 tier. Mm-hmm. Also, while I was gone, I also edited and produced, obviously, the backdrop last week, looking at Superman and Lois, the CW show, the last of the CW universe, a take on the Man of Steel, the Man of Tomorrow, which I quite enjoyed because it kind of takes an unconventional look at like letting Superman evolve and the question of like what it means for a character like Superman to experience the passage of time and to confront like the inevitability of death. And that makes it sound very grim, but I actually think it's a really heartwarming, really charming show about the idea of like what it means to be an icon in a world that is constantly changing and how Superman is, a much more interesting character than a lot of his portrayals and in many cases a lot of his fans allow him to be. I'm very proud of that video. I think it turned out really well. And next week, we'll be talking about Adolescence, the Netflix streaming show starring Stephen Graham. I know myself and Marty have watched it. We didn't get to talk about it this week. Good, yeah, short take, good. But yeah, we'll be talking a little bit about that.
Also, each of the 4 episodes is a oneer.
A single.
And some of the behind the scenes of how the oneers are done, real impressive.
Like
when you're talking about oneers not being impressive, these oneers can be pretty impressive, Jack.
And again, like to Jack's point, like shot inside confined locations. The third episode in particular, which is the shot that like Eric's taken there, like one of the most visceral episodes of television I've seen in a very, very long time. Deeply unsettling, incredible performances, very powerful, very thoughtful. So yeah, we'll be covering that on the backdrop next week.
Hell yeah. And then regular streams this week. Nick and Jenna are going to be back in a little bit, playing The Last Berserker, The Last Kazan, The Last
The
Berserker.
Last Berserker Kazan.
Which is, I believe, it's Elia Kazan's latest film. No, it's I think a Souls-like. I don't know what the fuck it is. Just fucking come back and watch it in 45 minutes, and then you'll find out. We'll all find out together. It'll be great.
I don't know. Just fucking watch it.
Tomorrow, there's gonna be an early stream. I believe 8 a.m. Central. Nick, Jay, and Jesse Galena are going to be watching the Switch 2 showcase live. I'm not going to be here, so I can't be a part of that, but they're going to be watching that in the morning. We'll have Yahtzee Tries in the afternoon, more Metroid at night. All the normal stuff. Firelink on Thursday. Dev Heads on Friday, I believe, is going to be 2 hours later than usual. So a 2 to 4 Central instead of a 12 to 2. But yeah, there you go. Easy peasy. Then just the last couple super chats. Quick, Fungus Finder with a $2 dono. Love that this is consistently the longest second win show. But when you think about it, it's only every other week. So this is technically the shortest podcast.
I don't know, even allowing for that, it's technically the shortest. I think technically it's like a median length podcast. Yeah.
Technically. And then King Dead with a $2 dono. Thank you so much. Loved the art as commerce article. Yeah, that was a great one.
I'm very proud of that one. That was something I think had been bubbling a little bit in my writing in general, and I think it was just that was a place to put all the kind of thoughts that I had about how we treat art as, like, we've come to treat it as a service industry where, because we no longer see it as media, we see it as content, and because we no longer see audiences as audiences but as consumers, that changes our relationship to art and product and authorship and storytelling and narrative. And this podcast has gone long enough, but yes, I'm quite proud of that article.
As you should be.
Sorry.
Beautiful.
Yeah, big fan of it. It was originally called Fuck You Chibnall, but I tweaked it to a little bit of
You made an editorial decision.
A little bit of a more SEO friendly. I don't know, SEO, we don't have SEO. It's
I think the irony is that, like, I don't even mention the word Chris or Chibnall at any point in the article. You just meant to infer it.
This is about Mythic Quest. Why are you complaining about this in the title? That's great. Check all that out. And thank you so much again to everyone watching, whether it's live on YouTube, listening to your podcast service of choice, and of course our incredible patrons. Remember that $5 tier is where you get the best bang for your buckaroos. So for Jack, Darren, and Eric, this was Marty. This was the Rewind episode number 18. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.